American Sunrise Early Edition, an appeals court says the Trump administration really does have to bring an illegal alien guy like this Kilmer Abrego Garcia back to the U.S. That's despite more and more details of who Garcia really is and how he was swept up by ICE in the first place. The Trump administration isn't backing down as it cracks down on Harvard, but is it possible Harvard is closer to caving than we think? Legendary former Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz thinks so, and he has some evidence. But for now, Harvard is content to fool itself into thinking it's being courageously defiant by inviting Joe Biden to embarrass himself and drop his ice cream in front of students. No, that really did just happen. The weight loss drug wars just got a lot more interesting. One major pharma company is reporting great results for its experimental weight loss pill that would replace all those injectable drugs. And speaking of game changers on this Good Friday and Passover holiday, Israel is allowing more Jews and Christians to pray on the Temple Mount in a shift from decades of being afraid to offend Muslim dominance at the site. American Sunrise Early Edition begins now.
Welcome to American Sunrise Early Edition, the show where faith, freedom, and the values that built this nation take center stage.
Your good deeds and bad deeds, that's how we're going to judge you.
Join host Jake Novak as he breaks down the stories that matter.
We will be letting the public know regularly what we have found.
American Sunrise Early Edition with your host, Jake Novak, starts now.
And welcome to American Sunrise Early Edition. It is a Good Friday, so I wish a meaningful Good Friday to all of you who are observing that, and of course Holy Week, and it is still Passover. Happy Passover to everyone who is observing that and observing that. And it's of course No Tie Friday here on American Sunrise Early Edition here on Real America's Voice. I'm Jake Novak. Joining me now is American Sunrise Early Edition political and legal contributor, Dr. James Nuzzo. Jim, we've got the latest back and forth. It keeps going back and forth, but I guess the latest thing, don't blink your eyes, it'll change, is that now the court is saying that the U.S. really does have to go get this guy, Kilmer Abrego Garcia, and bring him back. And, look, we know it goes back and forth. We know that every minute now there's also new horrific information about this guy. By the way, he was swept up while meeting with top MS-13 leaders, so he's probably in that inner circle, where he certainly wasn't just an innocent bystander. We know about the orders of protection his American citizen wife asked for against him, knowing what that would mean for an illegal alien, and on down the line. But Jim, you and I have talked a lot about dumb hills Democrats are dying on, and they continue to double and triple and quadruple down on standing up for this guy who, by all accounts, seems like a thug.
Look, I'll leave aside the legal niceties because, as you're saying, it's going back and forth, and twice already we've seen the Supreme Court intervene and sort of say no to the lower courts. So let's leave that aside. I've been in politics since I've been 14 years of age, and I was a page in Congress, so many decades. And I have never seen a political suicide attempt as badly as what the Democratic Party is doing now. Why they would want to replace the idea regarding tariffs and trade, the problems in the market, with the lead story being that you have congressmen and senators going down to El Salvador to get this disgusting thug out of jail. It's just completely and utterly beyond me. And you even have James Carville saying this ought to be the face of the Democratic Party. This is what we ought to do. Well, look, Carville's a real smart guy, and maybe he's seeing something I'm not seeing. But when I'm looking at 80-20 or 85-15 numbers that basically say he should stay out of the United States, I don't understand the Democratic Party's desire to go and fall on this hill. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me politically.
Well, I think it happens when you have this, to me, and maybe you'll entertain this theory, is yet another example of how the Democrats, who under Joe Biden, I believe, were running a Politburo-like government. They had a government by committee. It was clear that there were a number of chefs in the kitchen, cooks in the kitchen. This feels like chicken without the head on. There's actually no leader to say, hey, tone this down. We're going to move on to something else. And when you choose someone like a 22 or 23-year-old like David Hogg to be the vice chair of the DNC, that tells me, again, there's really no real leadership here. No offense to 22 and 23-year-olds. Great to hear from them. But when you're named the number two person in the national party, it leads me to believe that there's really nobody watching the store. I wonder if that explains it maybe just a little bit.
It could be, but look, numbers don't lie. And we're not talking about a 56-44 number or a 58-42 number. We're looking at an 85-15 number. Even an 8-year-old would know that that is a bad, bad bet. David Hogg supposedly went to Harvard. What an absolute joke. Yet another joke regarding my alma mater. But all I can tell you is his Harvard education ought to be withdrawn, because if he thinks this is good politics, then he's an even bigger moron than I think he is. And I already thought he was a pretty big moron.
Oh, you set me up for the Harvard question. So, of course, it keeps going back and forth. I think the latest that the Trump administration has done is to start the process of informing Harvard that if they are not going to properly vet the foreign students they accept and bring onto campus, and not inform the Trump administration about some of the problematic people that they're bringing in overseas, then the administration will move to stop them from being able to admit foreign students. So that's the latest there. Again, we have new developments by the second in this story as well. And of course, I want to keep everyone updated on that. But as we were talking about off the air yesterday, Alan Dershowitz, the legendary former, now emeritus Harvard law professor, believes that Harvard is actually more close to capitulation than people think because of who they hire to represent them. Explain that situation to me, please.
There are two different types of law firms when you're ever going into a lawsuit. One is a law firm that you use when you want to go and actually fight. And there's another law firm, which is a law firm that you deal with who knows how to cut a deal. They've decided to choose the latter as their law firm. They're not talking about it publicly. And Dershowitz points out something very important. I'm a student of the student protest movement in the late 1960s and 70s, and actually have written about it. And one of the things that comes out of that is that the president of Harvard needs to be very cognizant of dealing with issues on the campus itself. So Garber wrote this letter, which is basically for internal Harvard consumption, saying how he was going to fight fiercely for Harvard. But at the same time, he hires a law firm who is tied to the Trump administration in order to cut the deal. This is $2.2 billion. That's a lot of money for Harvard, even for Harvard, $2.2 billion. And there's an effort in Congress to strip it of its tax-exempt status. This would kill Harvard. Well, not kill it, but it would hurt pretty darn badly. They've got to capitulate, and they will. At the end of the day, Harvard doesn't hold very many cards. Remember, there was a book that came out about 25 years ago called Why America Hates Harvard. America hates Harvard. Again, let's go back to the numbers. You want an 80-20? Go and fight Harvard. You're going to be on the 80. The 20% is going to be on those who support Harvard. Trump is an incredibly lucky man. He's got idiots running on the other side of him and allowing him to take the 80-20 vote every single time. I'm not talking about whether or not this is right or wrong from a substantive standpoint. I'm talking about it from a purely political standpoint. And purely politically, he's on the strong side. Harvard isn't. It will lose. Garber is a smart guy. He knows it. He's working on terms of surrender.
Yeah, as Ronald Reagan used to say, the choir needs music, and if this is the Democratic choir, they're singing off key. Now, speaking of choirs and praising, and let's go to worship here. I'm trying a segue here. Give me a break, folks. Israel's right-wing party leader is a man named Itamar Ben-Gvir. Sometimes he's in the government cabinet, sometimes he's not. Don't worry about that. That's not important. What is important is he has been noting that the number of Jews and Christians who have been allowed to, or at least been successful, in praying on the Temple Mount has gone up exponentially this year. Now, for those of you who don't understand, of course, Israel has had political control of the Temple Mount, or as the Muslims call it, Al-Aqsa, but this is the site of the Holy Temple. This is by far the holiest site to the Jewish people in the world and extremely holy for Christians as well. Israel's had political control of it since the end of the Six-Day War in 1967. However, in a move to placate Muslims, not only in Israel, but all over the world, who the Israeli government was worried would riot and commit terrorist acts, they continued to allow the Muslim religious authority called the Waqf to continue to have control over the Temple Mount religiously. And they barred Jews and Christians, even though it's the Israeli government, from praying openly on the Temple Mount so as not to anger the Muslim leadership there. Well, that has been revisited, apparently, although Benjamin Netanyahu says there hasn't been a change in policy. But I think this is a rightful move. As long as the Jewish and Christian worshipers there aren't being provocative and they're praying in their own way, I don't see why this can't be allowed. And as we observed Good Friday today, and we are getting into Easter weekend, and of course Passover is also wrapping up, and it's still going, I think this is a good story. I think people should be allowed to pray at their holiest sites. What do you think?
Well, first of all, the only place in Israel where Jews cannot be Jews is on the Temple Mount, which is a bizarre thought. 37,000 Jews were able to go up and pray this week. And that is more Jews who have been able to pray on the Temple Mount since the destruction of the temple in 67 AD.
And this is a live shot right now, if you're watching, if you can see us. This is a live shot right now of the Western Wall, and just above that, of course, is the Temple Mount. Everyone interested, this is a live shot right now. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, and if you take a look at that live shot, you'll see that covered bridge. That's the only bridge that you're allowed, if you're a Christian or Jew, to get up on the Temple Mount. No other place are you allowed to get up. You have to go through that long corridor to get up to the Temple Mount. And then up until now, it used to be that there would be Israeli police with guns who would be looking at you if you were a Jew or a Christian, and God forbid you were to somehow start, davening, praying on the Temple Mount, they would arrest you for praying on the Temple Mount. Jews would arrest Jews for praying at the holiest site. It is horrible. Ben-Gvir recognizes that the way in which you make change is you make change on the ground. You actually physically do things. Ben-Gvir is putting basically 37,000 markers down and saying to Netanyahu, I got 37,000 Jews who are up here. What are you going to do about it? And if you don't like it, well, then you better go and have them hustled off. And how is it going to look, Netanyahu, that you are pulling off 37,000 Jews during the holiest period for doing nothing but praying? This is a great thing. It is time for the Jews to stand up. It is time for Jews and Christians to recognize that the Temple Mount is part of Christianity and Judaism, and not just the third supposedly holiest site in Islam. And I don't think that Netanyahu's got a response to Ben-Gvir. I think Ben-Gvir has basically pulled a trump card out, and there's nothing that Netanyahu's going to be able to do about it. And he better learn to live with it, because that's the way life is now going to be. Thank God.
Yeah, well, speaking of thank God, I'm incredibly grateful. This is a very, very astute control room I have. They pulled up that live shot. I didn't tell them to do that. These are a bunch of young guys in that control room down in West Palm. Look how good they are. Eat your heart out. Big networks with union people in their control rooms. Dr. James Nuzzo, thank you so much for joining us. Have a happy end of Passover. Just really great to have you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. You too.
All right, coming up, a mass shooting at Florida State yesterday. I'll have the details on the alleged shooter, what we sort of know about him, when American Sunrise Early Edition returns. looking at a live shot at West Palm Beach this morning. I'm sure it's warmer there than it is here in New York, but beautiful. It's looking like beautiful in a lot of places in this country today. That's great because we've had some terrible storms the last few weeks, as you know. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. Special welcome to those of you watching and commenting on Getter and Rumble. The chat is going pretty strong right now on this Good Friday, on this No Tie Friday, on this just about the last couple of days of Passover. I'm so glad you're joining us today. Well, this is not the way America wanted to start the Good Friday and Easter weekend. A shooter at Florida State University yesterday killed 2 people, wounded 4 others yesterday. Police say the shooter is 20-year-old Phoenix Eichner. He's the son of a Leon County deputy sheriff in Florida. That's his mom, who's the deputy sheriff. And cops say he used his mom's old service weapon to carry out the attack. Now, we haven't had an official explanation of what the motive is in this attack. I have seen conflicting reports about this shooter, or I guess I should say alleged shooter, until he's convicted. All kinds of things, people saying he was far right, people saying he was far left. Again, I'm not really sure why that matters. You can be on the far right or far left or anywhere on the spectrum and not choose to shoot people. Again, one of the things I talk about all the time, do not politicize law and order. If someone commits a crime, prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law because they've committed a crime, not because of who the victim is and not because who the perpetrator is. The punishment for this kind of stuff should be the same. It should be swift. It should be strict. End of story. That's how you fix it. All right, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited the White House to talk about trade and more, and she really sounds familiar when she speaks to the media. Listen to this and tell me what you think.
Make that civilization stronger. So I think even if we have some problems, between the 2 shores of the Atlantic, it is the time that we try to sit down and find solutions. So I want to thank President Trump for having accepted an invitation to pay an official visit to Rome in the near future and consider the possibility in that occasion to meet also with Europe. The goal for me is to make the West great again. Okay? And I think we can do it together.
We can.
We will keep on work on that. I'm going to close. I want to say only I'm proud of sitting here as Prime Minister of an Italy that today has a very good situation despite the difficulties. A stable country, reliable country. 1 million more jobs in the last 2 years and a half.
Great.
Inflation is going down, so you forgive me if I promote a bit my country, but you're a businessman and you understand me. So migration flows going down 60%. So we are trying to do our best, but I think we can do it even better together. Also on Ukraine, I will close. Together we've been defending the freedom of Ukraine. Together we can build a just and lasting peace. We support your efforts, Donald.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think
Yes, if you guessed it, she sounds a lot like Trump, make Italy great again. So, that probably means the EU will indict her for some kind of sham crime soon enough. But all kidding aside, we do have friends in Europe. For those of you telling us everybody in the world hates us, not true. Obviously, the people with the loudest voices in Europe are being really critical of the United States. But that doesn't mean they are right, and that doesn't mean we're alone in the world. And certainly Italy is a friend of the United States. Be nice if they had a bigger birth rate, but that's their problem. They've been working on it, by the way. All right, coming up. Are you one of the 1,500 million billion people in America taking weight loss injectable drugs? Okay, I may have exaggerated that number a little bit. It feels like everybody is on those drugs. Well, you may be able to ditch that needle for a pill pretty soon. And you better believe that Wall Street is watching. And Nissan's mostly idling factories here in the U.S. are suddenly very popular. Hey, maybe this is how the struggling car company will stay alive. I'll explain when American Sunrise Early Edition comes right back. All right, so that's the control room that I was just praising a few minutes ago, pulling up that shot live from Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, right out of a hat. I didn't even tell him to do it. This is a great group we have down there in West Palm. And by the way, young people, for those of you washing your hands, thinking that the younger generation can't do anything right, look at these guys. They're very inspiring. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. And I want to take a look at the markets. And I'm not trying to fake you out because the markets are not open today. It is Good Friday. We're not going to have any market data coming today, but we did have another big sell-off yesterday. So do not believe anyone calling you and telling you to buy a stock today. They're scamming you. The markets are not open today. All right, but one big winner right now, even though the markets are not open, is pharma giant Eli Lilly. Now, Eli Lilly has been one of the many pharma companies that is, of course, fighting in that major weight loss war, those injectable drugs, Ozempic, Wegovy, I think there's one called Ro. It feels like everyone I know is on these. Not me, but I know so many people who are on these. And so, of course, people don't really like to inject themselves every day with the drug. And the fight has been going on in Big Pharma to find a pill to replace the needle. And Eli Lilly has an experimental drug, and you know these dumb names for experimental drugs, so bear with me. It's called orforglipron. I think they'll probably change the name if it gets approved. And it reported yesterday really good results from its phase 3 trials. And Wall Street loved it. Eli Lilly shares were up 14% yesterday. Just a hint for those of you who don't follow the markets closely. Drug companies, unless there's something horrific or really, really great happening, usually don't move more than 1% at any given day. And usually that's a pretty big move, actually, 1%. So for a 14% move in a very established old pharma company like Eli Lilly is unheard of. That's how much Wall Street likes this news. But again, folks, do this at your own peril. Do this at your own, obviously get a doctor's recommendation. These drugs, I think, whether they're injectable or pills, come with a lot of side effects. And from what I've heard from everyone, you can't get off them. In other words, if you stop taking it, you gain the weight back almost immediately. Again, so do this. Go get as much consultation as you can. I'm not bashing these drugs. I'm just letting you know. Of course, probably you already knew they come with some downsides, a lot of them. Let's face it, none of us are getting any younger, and staying healthy is more important than ever. Millions of Americans are always looking for ways to feel better, get in shape, and improve their overall health. Just talking about that. Today we have a special guest, Dr. Ian Tolberg, here on behalf of Pure Health Research, and he's going to talk about some great health supplements that you can use to increase your chances of success with your health resolutions. I know it's April, but some of you probably still keeping your New Year's resolutions. I hope so. And as a viewer of our show, they have an extra special deal for you as well. Dr. Tolberg, thank you so much for joining us. I know you work closely with Pure Health Research, and they make some wonderful health supplements for everyone. What can you tell us about them, Doctor? And if we're not hearing his audio right now, we're going to check up. We lost him. We're going to get his audio just back in 1 second. Again, I want to talk about how, again, listen, for those of you who thought I was bashing anyone who's on those drugs for a second, I just want you to know I am not doing that. I'm just offering a little bit of advice about how, of course, they come with side effects. And also, I'm also not bashing people who have a little trouble with their willpower. Depending on who you are, it doesn't mean you're a weak person if you can't always keep to a diet or an exercise regimen and also lose the weight. It's not actually for everyone. Now, I wish more people were able to at least try it, but I'm not one of those people who thinks you're just a weak person if you're not staying on a diet or you're not staying on an exercise regimen. However, you've got to make sure you give yourself a chance first to do that before you start with the drugs. I know they're still trying to check with Dr. Tolberg's audio. They're working on it. Folks, another thing I want to talk about today is, again, we got him in. Okay, Dr. Tolberg, you can hear me now. Tell us a little bit about these health supplements. Sorry about those technical difficulties.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. And thank you for having me on this morning. You know, one of the biggest things with these supplements is, especially one specifically, they really work with their commitment to quality. They use a lot of natural ingredients here, and those ingredients have been shown to be medically beneficial. And so there's a lot of clinical studies actually showing that when you get these supplements, that they actually do what they are intended to do. So they have no GMO, they don't have any artificial chemicals, preservatives, fillers. And so the manufacturers are supplementing, or the supplements are being manufactured right here in the United States. So you're getting that highest quality. And with that, you've got 45 different premium supplements that are crafted to support that really big wide range of health needs and wellness goals. So it's basically like this natural pharmacy at your fingertips.
Dr. Ian Tolberg, tell me, what are some of your more popular supplements? I'm sure there are some that really are hotter than others.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you, first of all, the one that I actually use is our liver health formula. That one is the most popular. There's been over 2 million bottles of that sold. And as the name implies, it really helps support that liver health. So ignites that metabolism, trying to get rid of that belly fat. It can help decrease those fat deposits in the liver, and then flushing out some of those harmful toxins to really give a good boost of energy. There's another that this one I have not tried yet, but the lymph system support. So anyone struggling with some of that excess fluid on your feet, your ankles, your legs, this can just really help get that excess fluid off. And I tell you, you're going to love this one because it can actually help restore some of those more shapely legs a little bit, just really alleviating that uncomfortable swelling and tightness as well. And really the third one that really from a medical standpoint works incredibly well is that blood sugar formula. So you could really see that from the name, it really helps to support that healthy blood sugar level. So it can help reduce the appetite. It can help crush those sugar cravings. So really making it easier to stay away from those tempting sweets and maintaining that healthier blood sugar level. And so when you do that, it really helps to support your heart, your circulatory system, your kidneys, and your vision. But overall, you've got to remember, we've got 45 supplements, 45 supplements. So no matter what your ails are out there, you're sure to find one that should work really pretty well.
No, that's awesome. Hey, Dr. Tolberg, thanks so much for joining us. And I understand that you know, and sharing the health advice and the supplements. If you're interested in any of the formulas Dr. Tolberg mentioned, head over to purehealthresearch.com, where you can find more information about those 45 supplements he talked about, and try them risk-free. And for the next 48 hours only, you'll save 35% on your order with the coupon code EARLY, the word EARLY. You're protected by their 365-day money-back guarantee, so you risk nothing by giving them a try. But again, this incredible 35% discount is only available for the next 48 hours, so shop and save now before it's too late. Go to purehealthresearch.com and save 35% on your order with the coupon code EARLY. Dr. Ian Tolberg, have a great weekend. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a healthy weekend.
Thank you for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. All right, it's Moving America, sponsored by the Artillery Tea Company, artilleryteaco.com. Use promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. Artillery Tea is all natural, whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each tea bag can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company, it's family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to veterans and first responder charities. artilleryteaco.com, promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. Okay, Nissan says that it is aiming to max out, quote, max out production at its largest American production plant amid President Trump's 25% auto tariffs. Now, that factory is in Smyrna, Tennessee. If you've been watching this program, you know that Nissan is on some really, really thin ice these days trying to survive. Who would have thought that the tariffs might actually be its lifeline? Because now people are really going to want to buy more and more cars and trucks built here in the United States. So Nissan might not just build more Nissans at that factory, but they might take some contract work. This could save the company, folks, especially since they have a lot of extra capacity to go at those factories. They have room, in other words. Really, really interesting development. All right, let's go to Ford. Ford is recalling more than 148,000 vehicles, mostly a variety of 2017 to 2018 model Ford F-150s. That's a big deal because that's their number one vehicle, as you know. Also, Expeditions and Lincoln Navigator models are also, some of them are part of this recall. It's because of a fluid leak that could reduce braking performance and force you to increase your stopping distance. Dealers are expected to replace, of course, the affected parts, such as the master cylinder or the brake booster. Of course, it'll be free of charge. Contact your dealer, find out whether your vehicle is part of this recall. That's a big recall for the F-150. Okay, I love it when car companies actually listen to the customers, and many more customers these days want hybrids than they want electric vehicles. And if you want a hybrid, many more customers want just a regular car, not something they have to plug in every night. They don't want to do that either. So guess what? Volkswagen announced at the New York Auto Show just now that they are changing their plans. They were going to ship and create 2 plug-in hybrids to sell in the United States. They've changed their minds. It's just going to be a regular hybrid. No tripping over the cord at night in your garage. You just charge the car normally when you're braking and all that stuff. Hybrid cars like that, to me, are much more convenient. That's what people want.
Well, there she is. Where? Right here, the wagon.
Dad, this is not the car you ordered.
Take it easy, Rusty. Ed, this is not the car I ordered. I distinctly ordered the Antarctic Blue Super Sports Wagon with the CB and the optional Rally Fun Pack.
You didn't order the metallic P?
Metallic P? No, Antarctic Blue. The sports wagon. This isn't even the right model.
You know, I think you're right. I don't think this is the car. This is the new Wagon Queen family truckster. This is a damn fine automobile.
That's the classic scene from National Lampoon's Vacation. I'm showing it to you because gearheads are making fun of the news that came out from Subaru. They unveiled, just in pictures, here you see it, the 2026 Subaru Outback, and they're comparing it to the truckster from National Lampoon's Vacation. It might be because the pics of the car were all in that same color, metallic P. But hey, you know what I think would be really funny? Based on all of this reaction to this car, if Subaru hires Chevy Chase, Eugene Levy, and Anthony Michael Hall to do the first TV commercial for this car. Am I brilliant or what? Watch out, Madison Avenue. A man can dream, can he? All right, folks, coming up, schools like Harvard have been coming off pretty badly these days. So how would we talk about an alternative to the so-called elite American colleges? I'll have that for you when American Sunrise Early Edition comes right back. It's Friday, April 18th. Here are some of this morning's top stories. An appeals court says the Trump administration really does have to bring illegal alien Kilmer Abrego Garcia back to the U.S. That's despite more and more details of who Garcia really is and how he was swept up by ICE in the first place. The Trump administration isn't backing down as it cracks down on Harvard, but is it possible Harvard is closer to caving than we think? Legendary former Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz thinks so, and he has some evidence to that effect. The weight loss drug wars just got a lot more interesting. One major pharma company is reporting great results for its experimental weight loss pill. that will replace all those injectable drugs and those pinpricks. And speaking of game changers on this Good Friday and Passover holiday, Israel is allowing more Jews and Christians to pray on the Temple Mount in a shift from decades of being afraid to offend Muslim dominance at the site. Hey, we can all get along and pray there. Why not? American Sunrise Early Edition continues now. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. You know, one of my rules for all broadcasting and all news is that if you point out problems in something in America and you don't offer a solution, after 2 or 3 times, you're part of the problem. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. Our first guest in the second half hour, our only guest in the second half hour. Oh, wait a minute. T. Bates is coming a little bit next. I teased that. But our guest right now is Jordan Hirsch. He is senior counselor for Palantir Tech. And Jordan, we've been talking on this program and a lot of other programs about the problems at American universities. It's not just all the protesting. It's all that stuff. We know that and Palantir has a fascinating alternative, part of a fascinating alternative to the so-called elite colleges in America. But first, I want to look at a new study here. I'm going to give people just a quick summary that says that a new study came out that says that college is still barely just worth it. Now, for those of you looking at that and saying, geez, why is Jake talking to this guy about an alternative to college? Just want to remind you, the numbers are getting basically narrower and narrower. This used to be a study that showed by far that going to a 4-year college was much, much better for a person economically over time. Now it's basically almost a tie. Those numbers are getting very, very close. And I wonder, before we talk about the specific solution here or specific alternative, Jordan, is this something that you've been looking at and noticing yourself?
Yeah, I think across a number of different vectors. First of all, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. First of all, I think there's been a great divorce between the university and the body politic of America over the last 50 years, really since the Vietnam War. And what we're seeing now are simply the consequences. Whether you agree or disagree with how the Trump administration is approaching the situation now, we deluded ourselves for a long time into thinking that what happened on campus didn't matter and wouldn't spill out into the real world, that abandoning the humanities and other areas of diversity to anti-American thinking wouldn't affect the broader politics of the country. And again, whether you agree or disagree with the Trump administration, I think this is only going to get more contentious before it gets solved. And we're in the middle of really rewriting the social contract between the university and the country. So that's on the ideological side. And of course, on the practical side, we at Palantir, and we can get into this a little bit, we've always had a very strong belief in the ability of young people. We really don't we take aptitude into account much more than skill and experience, because we believe in the inherent qualities of people. So we have never really felt like you needed necessarily the 4-year degree, or everyone needs the 4-year degree to be able to make a difference and to change the way that enterprises are operating.
Yeah. All right, Jordan. So let's get to the actual opportunities there. Let's talk. There's a fascinating, I think, and I've been following this for a few years, alternative to college that your company is making possible. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, we now have two ways of kind of getting out of college and coming and getting what we call the Palantir degree. The first we started right after October 7th, which is really we called it the Safe Haven program back then. It's now the Palantir semester internship. And that program was really born out of the fact that not only Jews, but many non-Jews were feeling like the college system was broken when they saw the way that the campuses, both the administrations and, of course, the protesters were approaching the post-October 7th environment. They wanted to get out. And we at Palantir felt like we wanted to do something. So we opened a fellowship up for people who wanted to come get away from the madness for a semester, open to everybody. And we saw an incredible amount of interest. And the first program was in the spring of 2024. We opened it up in the fall of 2023. And I can tell you from personal experience, it has brought in some of the most talented people at Palantir that I know. And it's people that may not have even had Palantir on their radar before. So really extending the logic of that, we just opened up a meritocracy fellowship for high school candidates that we're going to accept solely on merit and academic excellence. And we're actually closing applications because the interest has been so intense and so vast almost immediately. We thought the applications would skew heavily toward people who had been hurt by unfair admissions practices, and we are getting people who have already been accepted at some of the nation's purportedly top universities, saying that they would rather come to Palantir than those schools. So I think you're seeing people who are ahead of the curve, who see the problems and who want to get ahead of it and find an alternative path. And we are happy to offer that to them at Palantir.
So how do people find out about that? If you have a high school age student like I do, I have one in college too. Did you just go on Palantir.com and then look for something about the university? What is there a specific direct website for that?
Yeah, there's links, and we're posting it constantly on our social feed, on our X account, on LinkedIn. So there's plenty of ways to find us, and we're constantly on the search for young talent from all walks of life, because we think that we're not putting a premium on any kind of experience. It's really the intellectual capacity and the creativity of people who want to come work at Palantir.
Well, it's amazing that you're doing something about it. All right, speaking of doing something about it, Jordan, we can't let you go without asking about the effects of tariffs on your business, especially since Palantir is offering solutions. I've been noticing, again, on the social media accounts and some other places, that Palantir isn't crying about the tariffs. They're offering, basically, I mean, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, something like a tariff navigation service to get around this, or at least to find a way to make sure that this doesn't undermine your business. Tell me a little bit about that, because I think everyone is just throwing up their hands. This sounds like you guys, like you're doing with this college stuff, you're offering a solution.
Yeah, that we're in the business of offering solutions. And through software, that is Palantir at its core. We want to strengthen American and Western institutions and help them survive and thrive in crisis and beyond. And so tariffs is really just another manifestation of crisis, which is really where we've always had a lot of success in helping companies and helping the U.S. government and allied governments survive and thrive. So our tariff solution, and I would say the Palantir secret sauce, is that we are taking all of an enterprise's data and integrating it together, and then building workflows on top of it that are now in many cases automated, such that it helps human beings focus on the things they actually need to be doing, the high level strategy. So imagine you're a consumer goods manufacturer. You're confronted with tariffs on steel. With Palantir, you can unify all of your data, and you can see how tariffs are going to ripple through your entire system, all the way from your procurement down to how much you should be selling a product for to your customers. And in this tariffs game, if you are if you can sell something $1 cheaper than your competitor, even with the tariffs, you are winning. And that's where Palantir software can come in. We can help you find those efficiencies and those savings, and help you realize a significant amount of revenue, and use this really as an opportunity. Because what's happening now is 30, 40, 50 years of global supply chains are changing instantly, and you have to be able to react within weeks, not months and years. And that's where I think software comes in, and where the Palantir advantage comes in.
That's amazing. Well, Jordan Hirsch from Palantir, thank you so much for joining us to talk about that, and of course the college situation. And for full disclosure, Jordan and I are both undergraduates of Columbia University, and believe it or not, our football team is good now, and all Jordan and I want is a university our football team can be proud of. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Jake. You too.
All right, we were just talking about tariffs, and tariffs have thrown the global economy into chaos. Potential widespread inflation tied to massive supply chain disruptions is weighing heavily on all of us. But there is a silver lining that most people missed. President Trump specifically exempted gold and silver bullion from those sweeping tariffs. While these new policies are triggering significant financial chaos, the administration preserved your ability to diversify into precious metals. If you are concerned about your savings, I encourage you to have a free consultation with the Birch Gold Precious Metals Specialist. The first step is to text America to 989898 and receive your free no-obligation info kit on gold. Learn how to hold gold and silver in a tax-sheltered account. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a gold IRA for no money out of pocket. I buy my gold from Birch Gold. Is it finally time you did too? With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of thankful customers, text America to the number 989898. Again, text America to 989898. Okay, folks. Our good friend T. Bates is about to join us. We're going to talk about a breaking new development in the Russia-Ukraine peace efforts, so to speak. That's when American Sunrise Early Edition comes right back. That's the top of the Washington Monument. You see the reflecting pool there. Here in Washington, there in Washington, D.C. That's a nice live shot again. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak, wrapping up this hour before we get to the big show, American Sunrise, for 2 hours. And one of the stars of that program is Terrance Bates, and he's joining me right now. And Terrance, I want you to listen to something that Secretary of State Marco Rubio just had to say just not that long ago about the latest round of peace talks getting underway, the United States participating, hoping to get Ukraine and Russia to ceasefire, something like that. And he is actually really kind of laying out some interesting parameters. Listen to this.
But we're not going to continue with this endeavor for weeks and months on end. So we need to determine very quickly now, and I'm talking about a matter of days, whether or not this is doable over the next few weeks. If it is, we're in. If it's not, then we have other priorities to focus on as well. And so we've talked about outlines of both sides. I thought we had positive meetings yesterday. Obviously, the Ukrainians have to go back home. They have to run it by their president. They have to take into account, their views on all of this, and we hope to hear back from them very soon. So if they're serious about peace, either side or both, we want to help. If it's not going to happen, then we're just going to move on.
I think that's been the attitude, Terrance, that the United States or any third country trying to create a peace for two other countries should have. If you guys aren't serious about really making friends or at least stopping it, then why should the United States continue to sacrifice so much money and time?
Absolutely. And I think that phrase there at the end, if you're serious about peace, is critical. It appears from the outside looking in that peace sounds good and everyone is willing to talk about peace, but I'm not so sure there's truly a real appetite for peace on either side. And just yesterday, President Trump also in the Oval Office meeting with the Italian prime minister saying that there's just been too much death. There's been too many lives lost. And so that really is his priority. President Trump seems to be the only person who really has a critical say in all of this, who is truly invested with saving lives and stopping the killing. Everyone else seems to be invested in getting more land or not ceding anything in terms of not ceding anything in order to achieve that peace that we've been talking about. And when the one side that really isn't fully involved or isn't directly affected by all of that is the only person that wants to save lives and that's engaged, unfortunately, that's not a good recipe for success.
No, it isn't. And look, this is interesting. What was it, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, when everyone stopped? It was also a Friday. In fact, you were watching it live, Terrance, and letting the rest of the team know, I remember by text, when Zelensky came to the White House and wasn't respectful enough. And President Trump and Vice President Vance really let him have it. And the whole world said, this is it. This is the number one thing everyone is focusing on. And how quickly we've forgotten. It feels like we've had several lifetimes since then. I think it was really just 5 weeks ago, maybe 6 at the most. Yeah. And so much has changed since then. But to me, the reason why I'm bringing that up is just look how interested and focused we here in America, even the president's enemies, are on other things right now. Everyone is tired of this. This is not 2022 in February when people were putting the Ukraine flags on their Facebook posts. This is not that was 3 years ago, folks. We are tired of it. We want this to end. And the idea that we have to continue sacrificing. I mean, people are tired of it because, again, we lost interest just from a few weeks ago when everyone was trying to say this was the biggest deal in the world.
And to your point, it was a cause célèbre at one point in time. All the European countries seemed to be so engaged and they wanted peace and Russia was the big bad wolf. Well, now they're slapped with their own self-interest in terms of tariffs, and that's their focus. Let's make sure our economy is good. Forget Russia and Ukraine. They can handle it. They can work it out. You don't really see any of the European countries talking about Russia and Ukraine anymore. Their self-interest is front and center. And so it just goes to show, or it at least for me raises the question, were you really that engaged in all of this, and were you really that interested in peace between Russia and Ukraine, or was it just a lot of talking points and a lot of rhetoric to make you sound like you're more global and to make you sound like you're more interested in your other European neighbors?
No, you're right. Well, Terrance, I don't want to wrap this up and start the next hour without wishing you and your family and everyone in the American Sunrise team, which is about to start from 8 to 10 a.m., a very joyous Easter weekend, a meaningful Good Friday. For me, Passover is ending in just a couple of days as well. But of course, until the matzah gets out of my gastrointestinal system, it will always be Passover. But in all seriousness, have a very, very joyous weekend.
Hopefully you have had an easy Passover, my friend.
It's been going well. It really has been. Thank you so much. Again, American Sunrise, the big show is about to start with T-Base and the rest of the gang. And they'll have a lot more on this story, this breaking news story about the United States not really looking for and much more patience in these peace talks. I'm Jake Novak. I'll see you again on Monday.
American Sunrise is a great way to start your morning. Join us Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We've got the news of the day and some compelling interviews that you don't want to miss. Here's what you missed from yesterday. Hey guys, look, there's a lot to talk about this morning, and I just read an article this morning that I wanted to bring up, and it really kind of, I think, solidified why President Trump is implementing his tariff plan. Basically, this says that Japan has a $63 billion trade surplus with the United States. So in other words, they send us $63 billion more worth of products than we're able to sell in Japan, which I think, again, speaks to why President Trump is implementing his tariffs, and all of this, of course, comes after he met with Japanese trade officials yesterday.
This is so fundamental in terms of fairness, what the president is doing right now, that he seems heroic to those of us in MAGA who've been screaming about this for years, but there is just almost no argument, Emily, on the fairness, the absolute justice of some president coming along and leveling the playing field.
Republicans have been screaming this for years, and finally President Trump is acting on it. I mean, this is exactly what he campaigns on, this fairness that you talk about, Gina, and this is just promises made, promises kept.
Federal Judge James Boasberg is moving to hold the Trump administration in contempt over its use of deportation flights. Boasberg says that the court determined that the administration is willfully disregarding an order to not use the Alien Enemies Act.
Anyone that stands in the way right now, in my opinion, be it a judge, the media, the Democrats, is a threat to this country.
You grew up in Wayne, Maine. Now that rolls off the tongue. What would you focus on if you were to become governor?
I don't recognize my state anymore. I did grow up here, a little town of 500 people, and have written books about it. But the reality is this state is under siege. Those same illegal aliens, those same drug traffickers, those same groups that are terrorist and drug trafficking organizations are all over the state of Maine. It's hard to believe. I'm seeing your beautiful pictures of our state. But the reality is fentanyl is everywhere. We lose 40 to 70 kids a month.
Pam Bondi announced yesterday the DOJ is suing Maine's Department of Education over refusing to ban transgender athletes in women's sports.
We have repeatedly notified Maine of its infractions and urged them to remedy the situation to protect women.
If the state of Maine doesn't want federal funding, good, don't take it. We won't send it. Any other states want to step up, because apparently a couple more are going to do the same thing. Then we won't send money to places like Illinois or California either. You want men and women's locker rooms competing against them on the track or in the pool? Fine, you go ahead and do that. We'll just hold on to the money until further notice.
Good morning. And just ahead on American Sunrise, President Trump slams Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell and says he needs to go. Will Trump make a move on this? Plus, President Trump met with the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni on tariffs. When will we see a trade deal, though? And finally, could Republicans really be considering raising taxes on the rich? One report suggests that. Those stories, so much more we have for you this morning as American Sunrise starts this Freedom Friday, this Puppy Friday, this Good Friday right now.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
we have breaking news to share with you.
Politics. President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
We've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dr. Gina. Good morning. I'm Dr. Gina. We are live with you from the Palm Beaches this Good Friday. Let's bring in Emily Finn. She is filling in. If you can say Emily Finn filling in 3 times fast, I am really impressed. Filling in for David Brody, and Terrance Bates is in our Denver newsroom. Good morning to both of you. Happy Good Friday to you. I was just having a discussion with our EP, David Brown, and we were talking about why Good Friday is called Good Friday when the worst of all things happened, of course, Jesus' crucifixion. But it is something to contemplate why we call that Good Friday, Terrance.
Well, it's all about perspective. It is good because of the sacrifice, in my mind, because of the sacrifice Jesus made for all of us and the salvation that is now available to each of us, particularly us believers, in this day. So it was good because of the sacrifice, and hopefully we can make similar sacrifices in our own lives to benefit our neighbor and to benefit fellow man. That's just my view of it. I'm no pastor, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night.
Absolutely. Terrance, I think that is spot on. You know,
Dr. Gina didn't get the
I didn't get
it. She was like, huh? What is she talking about? Go ahead, Emily.
No, you know, it's good because it fulfills the gospel, right? I think, Gina, I heard you saying earlier, there had to be the death before the resurrection. And so it just was all a process, all something that had to happen, you know, in steps.
If it hadn't happened, there would be no salvation. There would be no resurrection. And that, I guess, is what makes it good. Plus, it is Jesus who is the ultimate good. So, you know, the Lamb himself. And so very special day, very special weekend. And it's nice to be here to celebrate with this team.
Yes. Happy Easter weekend, you guys.
That resurrection gives me peace, as I suspect it gives both of you peace as well. Unfortunately, peace is not something that seems to be on the horizon when it comes to Russia and Ukraine. Secretary of State Marco Rubio talking about that, saying the United States is ready to walk away from Ukraine peace talks if Russia and Ukraine don't get on board.
Wow. I think it's important to remind everybody that the Ukraine war is a terrible thing, but it's not our war. We didn't start it. The United States has been helping Ukraine for over the last 3 years, and we want it to end. But it's not our war. I wanted everyone to understand that. As you know, Ambassador Witkoff has had not 1, not 2, but 3 meetings with Vladimir Putin to determine the Russian perspective on this and understand what it would take for them to end it, to try to figure out very soon, and I'm talking about a matter of days, not a matter of weeks, whether or not this is a war that can be ended. If it can, we're prepared to do whatever we can to facilitate that and make sure that it happens, that it ends in a durable and just way. If it's not possible, if we're so far apart that this is not going to happen, then I think the president's probably at a point where he's going to say, well, we're done.
Emily, am I the only one feeling like it's about time somebody said it?
Absolutely. You know, this has to have been very, very frustrating for Rubio. I mean, he's definitely trying to bring these two sides together to come to some kind of an agreement. But both have been extraordinarily stubborn here. So I think he's finally at the point where he's like, look, you know, the U.S. is doing everything they can to facilitate these negotiations. But if the two sides can't come to any kind of an agreement, then maybe time to just walk away there, Gina.
Yeah, well, Russia are certainly no saints. But let me say this. Ukraine, the stuff that I am hearing that is coming out of Ukraine that I think will continue to unfold as amazing people like our own John Solomon look into it. mind-blowing. I am telling you, there is so much to unpack there, and we'll get to it in the days and weeks to come. But there's a lot going on there that, we can't report until everything is confirmed. But the things that I'm hearing from my friends on the inside of some of these conversations and talks are very upsetting. And Ukraine is certainly no saint either. This will be interesting. Let's do this. Let's check out today's Bible verse because that is the week we are in. That is certainly the weekend we are in, the most important, most significant weekend in all of Christendom. And today's Bible verse is from Philippians book 4, verses 6 and 7. And it says, one of my favorites, honestly, be anxious for nothing, but in everything, through prayer and supplication, and with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And then the peace of God, which surpasseth all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds through Christ Jesus. This is one of the best ones to memorize. This is one of the first ones I had my children memorize. And what I love about this is in moments of true grief, in moments of true desperation, we all have them in our lives, no matter how good we look on Instagram, we all have those moments, those really low moments. I love praying the peace that surpasses all understanding over the lives of my friends and family who are in moments that don't seem like they could possibly find peace. And it is that exact verse that always gives me confidence that you can pray the peace that surpasses all understanding over someone's life, and you can know that God is perfectly capable of that supplication. Well, President Trump has slammed Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, and he says he needs to be fired. Trump posted on Truth Social, the ECB is expected to cut interest rates for the 7th time, and yet, too late Jerome Powell of the Fed, who is always too late and wrong, yesterday issued a report which was another and typical complete mess. Oil prices are down, groceries, even egg prices are down, and the USA is getting rich on tariffs. Too late should have lowered interest rates like the ECB long ago, but he should certainly lower them now. Powell's termination cannot come fast enough, he said. And this comes after Powell said there could be economic uncertainty with Trump's use of tariffs. Well, for more on this, let's bring in RAV Chief White House Correspondent Brian Glenn. Brian, I know I went to the grocery store, and there were days where I can tell a lot. You can tell a lot when you go to the grocery store because it's just something that everyone does. And for weeks and weeks, you couldn't buy eggs. You couldn't buy them at all. And if you were buying them, you were paying these exorbitant prices. Well, just let me say this. Thanks, Brooke Rollins. Thanks, President Trump. There are eggs back on the grocery shelves at reasonable prices. So I don't really care what Jerome Powell is doing out there. I know he's wrong when things like that are happening in the lives of everyday Americans. Speak to that, Brian.
Yeah, you're correct. Good morning, Dr. Gina. I remember going to the grocery store and just picking up a few items, maybe having just 3 light bags of groceries, and it'd be $100. And I would, on the campaign trail, spoke with hundreds of people, and they would say the same thing, like they can't get out of the grocery store without spending $100 and maybe just getting no meat at all. Yeah. So this conflict here, this a little too late mentality, really has become an issue. Now, technically, President Trump can't really fire Jerome Powell. That has to go through a process, and it could end up ultimately in a Supreme Court issue, but certainly some disagreement on these interest rates.
You know, one of the things that goes hand in hand with the interest rates are President Trump's policies on tariffs, which is something, as we mentioned earlier, Jerome Powell has questioned. Yesterday, Italy's Giorgia Meloni, was at the White House with President Trump, meeting in the Oval Office. They talked about a European Union trade deal as well. What's the sense in terms of how that is going to go long term, and the fact that dozens of other nations are going to be coming here over the next couple of weeks to try to reach deals? And just before I allow you to answer, I'm sorry, Brian, but one of the things I found interesting is that President Trump said, I'm in no rush. We're getting rich off of these tariffs. I think that's key.
Yeah, he said that really in the very beginning, and said that I'm in no rush to have this trade deal in place, or this tariffs agreement in place. We're getting wealthy again, and we've been getting ripped off for far too long. So that sets the table, at least the pace, to get these talks. Now, Prime Minister Meloni invited President Trump to Italy to continue these talks. And the European Union, they're smart in this way. They sent their best negotiator to the White House to represent them, knowing that she has the best relationship to a certain degree than they do. But I do like the pace of this. There will be a 100% chance a tariff agreement will come in place, and President Trump has said that. But he is in no rush to do it because it is making us wealthy again. But definitely, I think this is a fundamental, just like the interest rates. You have two sides of this. One party thinks that these tariffs are horrible, and they think they're also the interest rates control. They're on the wrong side of what Trump is trying to accomplish. So I think both of these issues are very similar. It's just the ideology. It's stop Trump is what it is. Yeah. For the most part. It's just anti-Trump policy.
Yeah, Brian, we are talking money this morning, tariffs, interest rates, and taxes. Yeah. A new report suggests the GOP is discussing raising taxes on the wealthiest earners. The Hill is reporting that the talks are still in preliminary stages, but they could use the money to raise the child tax credit. What are you hearing about all of this, Brian?
This is very interesting talk. Normally when you talk about cutting or increasing taxes on the rich, that's something typically Democrats, AOC, Bernie Sanders would go around the country and talk about this. But raising this CTC, this child tax credit, from $2,000 to $5,000 would be historical. Not only would it really save the low to middle class family substantial amount of money, it would also be extended to higher upper class as well. Now, there is some stipulations in that to qualify it, but that $5,000 CTC is massive. It would have huge implications to the tax in 2026, if I'm not mistaken. That would be implemented during that tax year. But this is great. This is also goes across the talking points of Republicans are only for the rich. Well, and President Trump protects the wealthy class, and this definitely kind of goes against that. But it's unprecedented that we would see any type of headline saying that President Trump is going to tax the rich, because that goes against the narrative that you hear from people with the homemade signs that stand out in front of the White House every day and say that President Trump protects the rich. But the CTC tax credits, the Trump tax cuts, all that must be extended. That was historical as far as saving Americans putting more money in their pocket. And so the Trump tax codes must be extended, must be made permanent again, in order to keep this savings money going back to Americans.
Brian Glenn, living the life, laughing, loving in lavender. I just love the purple on you today. Happy Good Friday to you. Happy Easter to you and yours this weekend. Thank you.
Take care, Brian.
Thank you.
Coming up, we check out the hottest headlines from the RAV newsroom with T. Bates, and later, more shocking developments coming out regarding the deported Kilmer Abrego Garcia. We have those shocking developments ahead on American Sunrise just after this.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. Coming up later in the show, we'll be talking about a notoriously woke university. I'm talking about Harvard University, of course. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is now cutting 2 grants at Harvard, totaling $2.7 million. She says that the university is unfit to be entrusted with taxpayer dollars, really gearing up for a fight there at Harvard. We will have all of the details for you coming up a little bit later. But first, Terrance Bates is standing by with the latest headlines from the Real America's Voice newsroom, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
President Trump says he is, quote, in no rush to make a deal over his trade tariffs. However, he and his team are continuing to meet with countries who are eager to nullify the Trump reciprocal tariffs. Thursday, it was Italy's Giorgia Meloni who was also at the White House representing the interests of the European Union.
We have a lot of countries that want to make a deal. Frankly, they want to make deals more than I do. Go ahead, Scott. Would you say something?
Yeah, we've got a process in place. We're working on the big 15 economies. We had a fantastic meeting with Japan yesterday. I believe they've been called with the EU already. And then we have South Korea coming in next week. And I believe India is also talking. That's moving very quickly.
Meantime, as President Trump works to reset the global economic order, he's also considering a reset at the Federal Reserve. The commander-in-chief says Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell's termination, quote, cannot come fast enough. That statement coming amid the president's continued frustration over the central bank not cutting interest rates aggressively enough, especially after the European Central Bank cut interest rates for a 7th time on Thursday. The cuts are said to be focused on countering concerns about economic growth brought on by President Trump's tariffs.
I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
The president's frustration also coming after Powell appeared to criticize some of the president's policies this week.
The administration is, as I mentioned in my remarks, is implementing significant policy changes, and particularly trade now is the focus. And the effects of that are likely to move us away from our goals. So unemployment is likely to go up as the economy slows in all likelihood, and inflation is likely to go up as tariffs find their way, and some part of those tariffs come to be paid by the public.
No matter the economic policies coming out of the White House, Powell says the central bank will continue working towards its goal of 2% inflation. Classes are canceled for today at Florida State University following Thursday's deadly shooting that left 2 people dead and at least 6 others hurt. Memorials around the campus continue to grow this morning, and the university's president is out with a statement saying that psychological counseling services are available for students, faculty, and staff who are struggling with what happened there. Investigators say the shooter is a 20-year-old student at the university. However, no motive has been released at this point. The alleged killer reportedly got access to the gun used in the attack from his mother, who owns that weapon. She's said to be an 18-year veteran of the local sheriff's department and described as a model employee. That's a quick check of your headlines. We'll have more news coming your way shortly, including more and more protests coming out of Gaza against Hamas. So could this be the turning point in the war there? Next, though, Russia has taken the terror organization designation off of the Taliban. So what should we make of this? We'll take a look. Right now, a quick look at this day in history. It was on this date in 1943 that Operation Vengeance took place against Isoroku Yamamoto. He was the commander-in-chief of Japan's Imperial Navy. Yamamoto was the architect of the sneak attack on Pearl Harbor that killed over 2,400 troops and dragged America into World War II. As for Yamamoto, his death wasn't simply an act of war against a high-value target for President Roosevelt and for all Americans. It was also personal. A U.S. Army Air Force fighter shot down an aircraft with Yamamoto inside, killing him and delivering not only a well-deserved dose of karma, his death also gave closure to the families whose loved ones were killed on that terrible day in December of 1941 that will forever live in infamy in the hearts of all Americans. By the way, this week, the oldest known survivor of the attack on Pearl Harbor passed away at 106 years old. The man here on your screen, Vaughn Drake Jr., was an Army engineer working in Oahu and said that initially he and his fellow soldiers didn't believe they were under attack. A proud patriot always, he received the World War II Victory Medal, the Army Good Conduct Medal, the American Defense Medal with Foreign Service Bar, and the Asiatic Pacific Medal with 2 battle stars. Mr. Drake is survived by his son, 2 grandsons, and 3 great-grandchildren. We, of course, extend our sympathies to the Drake family, and we extend our gratitude to the roughly dozen service member survivors of the attack that are still alive today. We thank all of them and all of our troops around the world. We're back in a moment.
This is a beautiful scene. Take a look at your screens, everybody, right now. This is Duck Creek Village, Utah. I've never been there, but I would very much is making me crave skiing and making me jealous of Terrance, who gets to spend every day right there by the slopes. This is usually the time of year where I like to ski because it's sunny. All right, welcome back to American Sunrise. The deported El Salvadorian man at the center of a massive court battle was reportedly flagged by the Biden administration in 2022 as a suspect alien. Just the News reporting that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was possibly involved in human smuggling and or trafficking. Garcia was reportedly stopped in Tennessee in late 2022 for erratic driving. Now then, the authorities found his SUV full of people coming from Texas. The Supreme Court ordered the Trump administration to work to bring Garcia back from the infamous El Salvadorian prison. So for more, let's bring in former DHS advisor and former Secret Service Special Agent Charles Marino, who is going sans caffeine this morning, but we're going to fix that a little later in the show. Charles, what do you make of all of this?
Well, look, it's simple. The president of the United States is the one that sets national security strategy by law. It's not Congress. It's not the courts. We've seen a lot of changes since the Biden administration. You've seen the designation of the cartels and gangs like Tren de Aragua and MS-13 as now foreign terrorist organizations. You've seen greater use of the military down at the border to help secure that border. And you've seen public safety threats and national security threats be prioritized within the interior of the United States for deportation. We're not talking about a U.S. citizen here. We're talking about a citizen of El Salvador who's now been identified as part of a foreign terrorist organization, MS-13, who was prioritized for deportation. And that is exactly what happened. So I don't see what the problem here is. The bigger question for the courts, I think, is can somebody who enters the United States illegally still be able to participate in the American process of having to go through the court systems first before being deported? And I think the answer to that is no.
Charles, I think you make some very poignant points there. I do want to shift our conversation, though, to this Associated Press headline. Russia's top court lifts terror group designation on Afghanistan's Taliban. I'm curious from a U.S. national security standpoint what impact that potentially could have. And then let's even broaden the conversation globally. It sends a message, it seems to me.
Yeah, and Russia sees a void in Afghanistan, and lifting that terrorist designation, which was done by the Russian High Court, allows the Russian government to start to re-engage with the Taliban, who is essentially the government of Afghanistan. And, you know, they're going to try and work together, of course, under the premise of helping to stabilize Afghanistan. But with Russia, we know there's always a vested interest in this neck of the woods, so to speak.
Charles, you know, we want to get your take on this as well. We could be seeing a turning point in Israel's war against Hamas. Demonstrators in Gaza have been protesting against the terror group. They've been chanting, "We want Hamas out." They were also carrying Egyptian flags, showing signs of support for their efforts in getting a ceasefire deal worked out. What do you make of all of that?
Yeah, look, it's the power of the people, and hopefully it pushes Hamas out of the area. The area is getting the attention it's getting from Israel because of Hamas. This is, again, I think both Israel and the United States have made it very clear, as well as other countries in the area, that this is not a fight against the Palestinian people. This is a fight against Hamas, a terrorist organization with links to Iran that are governing this area and undercutting every single peace efforts in the region along the way. And they are a clear proxy of Iran, along with Hezbollah, the Houthis. Altogether, these proxies provide further instability in the region. And I think the Palestinian people have simply had enough and would like a restart in the area at peace.
When you speak of peace, I can't help but think of our country as a whole right now under this president. And it just seems like with the ceasing, really, of active illegal immigration and with the strength of this particular president, it does seem like it's a more peaceful time. Do we have any actual raw data on that coming out yet?
Well, in terms of metrics, no. In terms of style, yes. We always see, as we did in the first Trump term, we're seeing very tough, direct diplomacy. We don't see a fear to engage with international leaders out of the White House. The president says what he means and means what he says, and people know they need to take him at his word. President Trump also is a big fan of using the power of the purse to get what's in the best interest of the United States. So from a style standpoint, the administration gets an A for, one, reopening the diplomatic doors that the Biden administration completely walked away from, whether it was regarding the border crisis or the crisis in the Middle East or Russia, Ukraine. They were very ineffective, the Biden administration, when it came to diplomacy. And I think that's where you see President Trump really strive and succeed.
Charles Marino, we thank you for joining us today. Hope you get that coffee.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm going right now.
Charles.
All right. Coming up, New York Congressman Elise Stefanik has been very critical of Governor Kathy Hochul recently. Could she run for governor herself? We'll assess next on American Sunrise. Now that is an even more beautiful sight. That is our illustrious control room doing what they do, being the best in the business. Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. G. Thanks for joining us. It is time now for today's health news, sponsored by the Wellness Company. Under the microscope today, some new revelations about CAT scans, CT scans. CT scans widely used to get internal images of your body and to diagnose medical conditions, but a new study says they could be responsible for 5% of all cancer diagnoses each year. Now, this study from the University of California at San Francisco shows that ionizing radiation exposure from the scans is on par with other risk factors, things like consuming too much alcohol and being overweight. Those are major risk factors, right? New estimates show that we could see approximately 103,000 future cancer diagnoses because of CT scans. Tell you what I'm excited about, though, is that RFK is in the White House and that he is heading up HHS and that he's going to be looking at independent studies from some of these smaller scientists who aren't controlled by the big money. And I think we're going to get a lot more information on things like CT scans, food, drugs that we take, and all the rest. So I'm very excited about that because it is a new day in America and a new administration in Washington, D.C. A lot of excitement and optimism about the future, but reality is a lot of work to do, too, especially when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system, because the forces responsible for breaking it aren't going to simply go away. The challenges our system faces won't disappear overnight. Now more than ever, you want to be prepared, and that's exactly where the Wellness Company comes in. Their doctors are medical professionals you can trust, and their line of prescription medical kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. Whether it's the medical emergency kit, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, the travel kit, these prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to tell you how to use the meds in the kit. From flu to strep throat to COVID to bird flu, a trip to the beach or trip overseas, the Wellness Company, they have a prescription kit designed to keep you safe. Make America healthy again. It starts at home. Do your part. Protect the health of yourself and your family. Go to twc.health/RAB. Today, give it an order. That's twc.health/RAB. Use the promo code RAB. That'll save you 10%. Emily Finn.
Oh, you were getting so good at that pronunciation, Gina. I'm so proud of you. All right. On more headlines this morning, New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik could be looking to run for governor in her home state. Stefanik is now feuding with incumbent Governor Kathy Hochul and pointed out a poll showing Hochul could be vulnerable. It's a Marist poll, and it shows Hochul having a 39% approval rating. It also said a majority of people do not want her seeking re-election. Stefanik was previously nominated for UN ambassador, but was withdrawn so she could stay in Congress. Could Stefanik make New York great again? Well, for more, let's bring in the host of Last Call, which can be seen here weekends on Real America's Voice, Mike Crispy. Mike, thanks so much for joining American Sunrise this morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So weigh in on this. I mean, do you see Stefanik making this move, and could she make New York great?
Well, I think she should. I mean, she's been a phenomenal ally of President Trump. She's young. She looks the part. She sounds the part. She's ascended very quickly in the congressional ranks. Again, the number 3 ranking Republican as the conference chair. And she has made a lot of the headlines lately for the right reasons. I mean, she took on the anti-Semitism on college campuses very heroically. She very selflessly stepped out of her nomination for UN ambassador because she needed to go back to the House because the majority is so thin, and she did it to help pass President Trump's agenda. And I think Kathy Hochul is historically unpopular right now. I mean, even just look at New York City, which overwhelmingly votes Democrat. They're all upset about the congestion pricing, which is a total scam, a tax on the working class, and Hochul's fighting to keep it. I think that Stefanik can run on that alone, get a big percentage of New York City voters, and she can win.
I'm sorry, tell us about the congestion pricing, because I'm not sure that's a term that those of us who don't live in New York are completely familiar with.
Well, it's an unbelievable thing, and the Trump administration has been fighting Kathy Hochul to overturn it. Essentially, anybody who comes into New York City, a certain part of New York City, has to pay a new tax, essentially, of an extra $10 a day when they come in. So if you're a person who lives in a suburb and you work in Manhattan, okay, from the bottom of Manhattan to 60th Street, you now have to pay $10. Think about it. If you are a firefighter or a police officer or a construction worker or anything, and you come from a place outside of New York City, and you come into New York City for your job, as millions of people do, you now have to pay $10 a day. So if you're a working class person, that's an extra $500-600 a month. That's not affordable, especially with how New York City is jacking up basic costs of living. So it's something that I think is on every voter's mind in this state. And I think Stefanik can run on that. Lee Zeldin almost won the governorship last time against Hochul, and this wasn't even a thing back then. So I think if she runs on that, she can get a lot of New York City voters and flip the state.
Absolutely. You know, this congestion pricing is just one of the examples of why people are leaving New York entirely. They're going other places like Florida, like me and Gina are
and why
today.
people are voting Democrat. I mean, why people are voting Republican instead of Democrat, because they don't want this kind of stupidity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, Mike, I want our audience to see a little preview of what people can expect to see on Last Call. Let's take a quick look at this.
Well, I think Congress should do an investigation into this, but we're going to demand.
Oh, my goodness. Is this, Frankie, is this the latest collusion hoax? It was Russia collusion hoax. Now it's President Trump negotiating on the world stage, advocating for America, getting ripped off. And because he's using leverage and doing an art of the deal, therefore they're going to impeach him because the market went down, because he's putting Main Street over Wall Street because the market went down, and then he got some leverage. So the market went back up. That therefore means that an investigation needs to be opened into him. Are you kidding me right now? Frankie, what's going on?
Listen, all I'm going to say is, I mean, are you really surprised, Mike? I'm actually, I would call this, because we got Dan Bongino in there. Obviously, he goes straight in. Shift is coming up. We're going straight after him.
That is a lot of energy there, Mike. What do you have coming up on the big show this weekend?
Well, I think it's been a great show. Obviously, high energy on a Saturday night. Everyone's having a good time. But this weekend, it's kind of unbelievable because the Democrats have shown an undying, unceasing love for illegals. I mean, they just love illegal criminal gang members. So we're going to be covering, obviously, the insane breakdown of the party as they have just absolutely opened their heart up for the MS-13 human trafficking gang member who was deported back to El Salvador, rightfully so. We're going to cover that. We're also going to cover AOC and Bernie Sanders looking to form the 2028 ticket. And we're also going to cover the return of Sleepy Joe Biden. Came out from the basement, gave a speech, and I think they're going to put him back in the basement after that speech. So all that and so much more Saturday nights, 8 o'clock right here on RAV. And I appreciate you guys plugging it.
Back to the basement for Sleepy Joe. Hopefully they have some tubs of ice cream down there for him at least.
That's right. And amphetamines, because he needs that to stay awake.
Yeah. And a walker and a cane and maybe just a gurney. Let's just get the job done. Mike Crispy, great to have you. We're so looking forward to this on a Saturday night. Thanks for being with us to let us know all about it.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
All right, coming up, funding cuts galore for Harvard University. We have the latest on why DHS Secretary Kristi Noem cut more than $2 million in grants. And later, President Trump is honoring the gospel in his message about Holy Week, how he promises to defend Christianity from the White House. This when we return. And you guys, we'll be right back because the fun starts again this Good Friday in just 2 minutes. Welcome back. It is time now to stay awake, not woke, brought to us by the 1775 Coffee Company right here behind me. Now, if you care about what goes into your body, like you care about what's happening in this country, this is for you. 1775 just dropped. I'm so excited about this. Their new Rejuvenate blend, the first coffee of its kind. It's crafted to help you feel stronger, stay sharper, mentally focused, support healthy aging. In every single cup, it's a bold, dark roast infused with CAAKG, which is a clinically studied ingredient to show support for longevity and to help reduce biological age. And right now, you can grab their longevity bundle, everything you need to upgrade your morning routine for just $99. This is a massive bundle, super exciting. They only made 1,000 of these though, so once they're gone for good. And this includes 2 bags of their Rejuvenate anti-aging coffee, a rare pea berry roast, one of the most elite beans on earth. Less than 5% of coffee crops worldwide are this pea berry. And this exclusive 1775 merch that you won't find in stores at all, designed for people who still believe in America first. That's you, I'm pretty sure. This is small batch, single origin, roasted fresh every single week, right here in Florida, in Miami. Not corporate lab junk, you guys. No watered down blends, just real coffee with one powerful, proven ingredient. So do this. Head to 1775coffee.com/RAV. Grab your longevity bundle while you still can. This is coffee that wakes you up, but it also fuels your body and reminds you what freedom tastes like. Best thing in the world. All right, back to you, Emily, now that we are all caffeinated.
Yes, we are, and it is time to stay awake, not woke, Gina. That's what the Department of Homeland Security is doing to the notoriously woke Harvard University. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is canceling 2 grants for the university, $2.7 million in total. In a statement Wednesday, Noem said Harvard is, quote, unfit to be entrusted with taxpayer dollars and is demanding the university submit records on the school's, quote, foreign student visa holders' illegal and violent activities. Harvard could face further ramifications if they do not hand over those documents before the end of the month. Now, the university is being criticized for anti-Semitism on campus after a pro-Palestine encampment popped up in Harvard Yard last spring. Oh, that was certainly enough to make you hit your breaking point. And lucky for us, Real America's Voice's very own David Zier is here with us now. He's the host of Breaking Point every weekend here on RAV. David, you know, President Trump, he's been criticizing Harvard. He had a post on X saying the school is a joke. They only hire, quote, woke, radical left idiots and bird brains. I mean, they're one of the wealthiest universities in the world. They don't need any more taxpayer dollars, right, David?
Yeah, Emily, good morning. Happy Easter. These colleges were always commies, protesting, everything, led by the faculty. And the kids are just automatons of the nanny state, riddled with guilt of their upper middle class upbringing so they can latch on to the social justice warrior theme of the day. But it's worse than that, Emily. Students are engaging in anti-Semitic and violent behavior with the tacit endorsement of the college hierarchy. And back then, there weren't so many government-funded foreign nationals violating the terms of their student visas and putting Jewish students and others in harm's way. Trump launched a federal anti-Semitism task force and linked it to federal funding mechanism. What's so bad about protecting the civil rights of Jewish students on these elite college campuses? And faculty's warning of dire consequences for the environment and cancer research and the little children. You know, it's always scare tactics. And Princeton President Chris Eisgruber said there's a principal threat to academic freedom here. And there isn't. Get men out of women's sports and stop creating unsafe environments for Jewish students on the campuses. And there's some daylight here, though. Students are trending more conservative thanks to brutal COVID policies, outrageous student loan debts, and, of course, the brilliant efforts of TPUSA. And I just wanted to add, I paid for 72 years of Catholic school and college for my children. So, and we're all saddled with debt and student loans, and our kids, until they're 40, they're unable to pursue the American dream. So I have advice for everybody in America. Keep your kid at home, get a vocation, skip the fancy schools. There's a strong need for reliable trades. My plumber owns 2 houses in the island of Grenada.
Wow, that is awesome. You know, David, higher education institutions today are such a scam. They're just brainwashing young people into thinking that they can support terrorist organizations, or it's okay to be hateful towards to Jewish people. It's so sad to see. You know, David, you're always this close to your breaking point. What are you venting about this weekend on the show? Tell us what we can expect to see.
Well, I have J.D. Vance's brother, Corey Bowman, on, running for mayor of Cincinnati, a hot primary coming up. I have New York State Assemblywoman Jody Giglio on the outrageous New York State budget. It's larger than Florida and Texas's budgets combined, and there's like 30 million less people, and new bills that strip law enforcement's ability to fight crime in New York State. I have Professor Nick Giordano about the U.S. military buildup around Iran, including 2 carrier groups, B-2 bombers, and massive logistical operations underway. So it'll be a great show tomorrow at 8 a.m.
Fantastic. Can't wait to tune in. David Zier, thank you so much for joining us.
Super. Thank you, Emily. Happy Easter to you and your family.
Easter, David. All right. Now, coming up, an absolutely tone-deaf Holy Week cartoon is showing how commercialized the Easter holiday has become. It depicts the Last Supper with a chocolate bunny. Is that a chocolate bunny in the middle of the screen? Oh, we have to discuss. We'll be right back with more.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
All right, welcome back to American Sunrise. It is now time for our moment of faith. It is brought to us perfectly by the Lee Greenwood folks and the God Bless the USA Bible. And in focus today, let's take a look at this tone-deaf cartoon from the New Yorker magazine. We're looking at the drawing of the Last Supper, but with a chocolate bunny in the middle of the table. Now, underneath the cartoon, it reads, in presumably the voice of Jesus, "So the bread is my body and the wine is my blood and the chocolate bunny is a fun springtime treat." The New Yorker insulting Christians with this cartoon right in the middle of Holy Week. For more, let's welcome in Baptist minister Reverend C.L. Bryant. Pastor, we had a little debate in the studio of, is this something that we should spend time being offended by? Because there are a lot of things that are more offensive, Christians being killed all over the world. Let's just start there. Very much more offensive. But there is something in me that bristles when something is so lightly dabbled into something that is so very sacred. Some things are sacred, Pastor. This is sacred. And in a way, the insidiousness of adding a joke about something that is so sacred to Christians is really, really offensive. Your thoughts?
I really believe you should gristle over that, Gina, because the main focus of this time of the season for Christians is Matthew 28:6, and that is, He is risen. And when we talk about the type of cartoonish ways Christians are many times displayed in and conveyed in, we must defend the faith at all times and at all costs, even in our spirit when we are offended. Others speak up all the time, but yet Christians seem to be chastised when we speak up against things that offend us. And so, yes, it is time for us, always been for us to defend the kingdom of God and the principles of Christianity. In fact, it is our faith that give all the rest of the faiths in this country the privilege to worship without threat of being harassed.
Such a great point, Reverend, because we are the ones that understand freedom on such a basic level, because it's in our holy book, of course. I also want to get your take, while I have you, if I can, Pastor, on President Trump's message, the one that he released for Holy Week. Take a look at that. Oh, it's just okay. So I have seen it all over. We don't have the full message, but you get the idea from the quotes. He is, definitely talked about Jesus Christ, the living Son of God, who conquered death, freed us from sin, and unlocked the gates of heaven for all humanity. This is not a light-hitting message from our president, CL.
No, the president stated very boldly what every Christian should declare, is that Jesus Christ has risen from the grave. There needs to be a resurrection in America, and I do believe that God is using this man to create that resurrection. But Gina, you have to keep in mind that there is no resurrection without someone, and in our case as Christians, it was Christ who was crucified. But down through the years, those who followed Christ went through their own forms of crucifixion. And we must remember that without the crucifixion of someone who is willing to pay the price for our misguided deeds, there is no resurrection. Without the crucifixion of Christ, there is no resurrection. And without the sacrifice of American Christians, there cannot be a resurrection of our nation. And so I applaud President Trump in his bold statements, and they should not be bold or out of place for an American president to have to say these types of things. But he is saying those things that others have not.
Yeah, and I think there's one of the things that I hear all the time from some pious Christians and from some on the left as well, is that his faith isn't sincere. You know what? Actions speak louder than words, and the policies that he is implementing definitely speak loudly to this Christian base. Reverend C.L. Bryant, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Happy Easter, everyone.
Happy Easter to you as well. Back with the second hour of American Sunrise in 2 minutes. Don't go away. We've got more.
Introducing the limited edition God Bless the USA Bible, inspired by Lee Greenwood's hit song and the most recognized patriotic anthem in America, God Bless the USA. The God Bless the USA large print leather-bound King James Bible also contains America's founding documents, the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance, along with a handwritten chorus to Lee Greenwood's song, God Bless the USA. With its large print and slim design, this Bible invites you to explore God's Word anywhere, anytime. The God Bless the USA Bible makes the perfect gift and cherished family heirloom keepsake to pass on to future generations. Designed for an easy reading experience in the trusted King James Version translation, this large print Bible is perfect to take to church, Bible study, work, and for traveling. Order yours today at GodBlessTheUSABible.com.
Coming up on the second hour of American Sunrise, President Donald Trump hosts Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni at the White House. But does Trump assure Meloni about an EU tariff deal? Those details ahead. Plus, El Salvador allows a U.S. senator's visit with an illegal mistakenly deported to the country. So what happens now to Maryland man Camara Abrego Garcia? We'll tell you. Also, after repeated attempts by rogue federal judges to try and stop the Trump administration's orders, will more cases bring the president more wins? We'll discuss Hour 2 of American Sunrise this Easter weekend. It starts right now.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
we have breaking news to share with you.
Politics.
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
We've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dr. Gina. All right, good morning. I'm Dr. Gina. We are live with you from the Palm Beaches. Let's bring in Emily Finn, who is in for David Brody and T. Bates in our Denver newsroom. Good morning, you all.
Good morning.
Dr. Gina, Emily, good morning.
Good morning. You know, sad evening last night, Terrance.
In what respect? Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was going to go somewhere else, but go ahead. In what respect do you think
I was just going into the stories we're going to discuss, and, you know, it was just sad news to watch. I know we were all glued last night. I was going to let you do the intro, but just giving you the go-ahead there.
No, I appreciate it. Okay, so you're talking about Florida State University and the shooting there. Yeah, I've been watching that. In fact, it happened really early in the day, I guess, on, what is today? Today is Friday, so that would have been Thursday. It happened early in the day on Thursday. I was actually reading a statement from the university's president this morning in which, of course, the entire university is hurting right now. No classes there today. Counselors are going to be on hand for students, staff, and faculty. The good news is the alleged shooter has been found there. They know who that person is. But unfortunately, at least 2 people were killed, many more hurt. Emily, it's just a sad situation there. But unfortunately, that's where life is today. Dr. Gina, we're significantly older than Emily. No diss, Emily, but we are a little bit older. Back in our day, this was just unfathomable. This wasn't something that we ever thought would ever happen, Dr. Gina. But now, unfortunately, it's become way too commonplace. And Emily, I'll just kind of leave the conversation there for you. I apologize.
You know, it really does break my heart to hear you say that, Terrance, because this is something that is so common. I have some friends that are in the area. Actually, a very close friend's niece is a student at Florida State. So I wanted to make sure that she was okay, was, you know, texting with people. And it's just something that you do. I remember when I was in college, this was just, 6 years ago at Central Michigan University, there was a shooting on campus there as well. It happened in the dorms. And, people, you know what to do. You know that there are lockdowns. You know where to go. You know how to stay safe and how to hide in these kind of situations. Kids that are even younger than me, in high school today, they have all kinds of procedures in place that they have to go through some kind of a safety training for these types of incidents because they're just so commonplace. It really breaks your heart, and it really is sad to see, Terrance and Gina.
Yeah, it really
Dr.
is.
Gina, for our era, this is unheard of. We never, this would have been the farthest thing from our minds when we were in college, high school. These school shootings, it just wasn't even on the radar for us, was it, Dr. G?
No, you're so right. I remember Columbine. Remember Columbine? I remember where I was standing when I heard the news. And this was, of course, years ago. I lived in Chesterfield, Missouri. And I was thinking about the difference of how the world really shut down for weeks after Columbine. That was all the news. And now we have a shooting, and it makes the news for a couple days, and then everyone moves on. And it really has been, you're right. It wasn't something of our generation at all, Terrance.
I would just like to add this one last point here. It really is a mental health crisis, though, you guys. And I blame social media. I think social media has caused so many mental health problems for young people, and they turn to violence like this. Hopefully we are able to address that in the
copycat factor as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
In a bigger way.
Our prayers going up for the folks there at Florida State University. Appreciate that conversation, guys. President Trump says that he is, quote, in no rush to make a deal over his trade tariffs. It's one of the big stories of the day. However, he and his team are continuing to meet with countries who are eager to nullify the Trump reciprocal tariffs. In fact, on Thursday, he met with Italy's Giorgia Meloni, who was also at the White House representing the interests of the European Union, not just Italy.
We have a lot of countries that want to make a deal. Frankly, they want to make deals more than I do. Go ahead, Scott. Would you say something?
Yeah, we've got a process in place. We're working on the big 15 economies. We had a fantastic meeting with Japan yesterday. I believe they've been called with the EU already. And then we have South Korea coming in next week. And I believe India is also talking. That's moving very quickly.
Meantime, as President Trump works to reset the global economic order, he's also considering a reset at the Federal Reserve. The commander-in-chief says Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell's termination, quote, cannot come fast enough. That statement coming amid the president's continued frustration over the central bank not cutting interest rates aggressively enough, especially after the European Central Bank cut interest rates for a 7th straight time Thursday. The cuts are said to be focused on countering concerns about economic growth brought on by President Trump's tariffs.
I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
Earlier this week, Jerome Powell appeared to criticize some of President Trump's policies.
The administration is, as I mentioned in my remarks, is implementing significant policy changes, and particularly trade now is the focus. And the effects of that are likely to move us away from our goals. So unemployment is likely to go up as the economy slows in all likelihood, and inflation is likely to go up as tariffs find their way, and some part of those tariffs come to be paid by the public.
No matter the economic policies coming out of the White House, Powell says the central bank will continue working towards its goal of 2% inflation. That's a quick check of your headlines. We, of course, will have more headlines coming your way here in short order. But now, let's get you back over to Emily and Dr. Gina. Dr. G?
All right. Well, President Donald Trump hosted Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni yesterday at the White House. Meloni was the first European leader to meet Trump since the president announced tariffs on European imports. Take a listen.
Oh, there'll be a trade deal, 100%. Oh, well, you think there won't be? Of course there'll be a trade deal. Very much. They want to make one very, very much, and we're going to make a trade deal. I fully expect it, but it'll be a fair deal.
Joining us now with political insight, Tom Del Beccaro. He is former chairman of the California Republican Party. Tom, we go way back. I hate to admit how far we go back, but it's great to see your face.
Always good to see you.
Thank you so much. But President Trump says, he's really not in a hurry to end these tariffs because the U.S. is making a lot of bank.
Well, I wonder how much of that is posturing and how much of that is real desire. Keep in mind that tariffs at most could bring in $200 billion, and we have a $7 trillion federal government, which is way too big. That should be more like $4 trillion. So there is that gap. He says he's going to make these deals, and I think, honestly, the sooner the better. But I think when he says he's not in a hurry, he's making it clear he won't be bamboozled by anybody.
Yeah.
I want to get your take on this as well. El Salvador allowing U.S. Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen to see deported illegal alien Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia. El Salvador's president says now that he's been confirmed healthy, he gets the honor of staying in El Salvador's custody. Your reaction to this?
Well, it's really beyond. The pictures out there of them having margaritas together. There it is right there. That's how serious the Democrats are. They visit a gang member in a prison and they have margaritas. The standard for politics in America today is rather simple. Are you fighting for me, regardless, are you fighting for the American cause? And is it going to affect my life? People in the great inflation, which Jerome Powell, who should be fired, ignited along with Biden, lost their savings. They need people to fight for them. I challenge the world. Are these pictures a demonstration of a party fighting for them? Obviously not.
Wait, I have just got to back up. They get margaritas in prison?
Well, they sat there in a whatever area, some area outside or some part of the prison. And the news reports has this sitting there drinking a margarita. I mean, so obviously it wasn't that intense meeting a gang member. And I think that's what they wanted. They're at some restaurant. So it's literally absurd, the tack that they are taking. Look, a majority of Americans not strongly support closing down the border. 56% support deportations. That's up 20% since 2016. And why is that up 20%? Because Trump made this an issue and showed Americans how it was harming them. So if the standard is this helping Americans or not? It's probably helping the margarita industry, but not Americans.
I'd like to get back to the tariff conversation, if you don't mind, really quickly. I thought your perspective was interesting, kind of questioning, is he posturing, is President Trump posturing, or how is he ultimately going to move forward? But I'm curious about the impact of what appears to be discord between President Trump and Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, and how that ultimately might impact the U.S. standing as it tries to reorder this global economic system right now. Does that hurt the president as he continues to push tariffs and continues to try to gain leverage, or does it hurt him in your mind?
Well, because President Trump is viewed as the one president who fights for Americans. They believe that he has their best interest at heart. And if you listen closely to his language, he was talking about how Powell doesn't have America's best interests at heart. He's too late, and on and on. Powell is a terrible Fed chair. He literally said on 60 Minutes that the fact that he flooded the country with dollars, printed so many dollars during COVID, it had no effect on inflation. One of my first pieces for Fox, if not my first, was how bad he was in that regard. When you print a lot of money, you ignite inflation. He doesn't understand that, yet he's in charge of our central bank. He's terrible. And he believes his job. You heard in the comments that you posted that he's talking about employment and the level of employment. That is not the job of a central bank. The central bank's job is to create stable money and let the market and people run the economy. He doesn't view it that way. He is unaccountable to a great degree, and he thinks he's in charge of employment, inflation, and all of these things. And because he has his eye off the ball, he has hurt the economy dramatically. Central banks usually do this until you get them under control, like in Argentina, and Trump hopes to do. And if he can put in Kevin Warsh, our life will be much, much better as the next Fed chair.
Tom Delbacaro, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, take
care. Happy Easter to you. All right, coming up, President Trump takes aim at Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, as we just discussed. Now, this comes after Powell has criticized Trump's tariffs. So how can he fire Powell? Well, we're going to discuss that. Also, kidnapped by Hamas and a remarkable return. You guys, this is a cool story. This brings a little light in all of the sorrow. In moments, the story of this little dog named Billy, a pooch kidnapped by Hamas that against all odds made it home. American Sunrise returns right after this.
All right, welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm American Sunrise correspondent Emily Finn. It's great to have you with us this morning. Time now to drain the swamp. And this morning, we are flushing out Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. In a post on Truth Social yesterday, President Trump says Powell's termination can't come fast enough and criticized the Fed for always cutting interest rates too late and wrong. The president was reacting to Powell's latest report, where he explained interest rates would remain unchanged until we see recent policy changes play out, especially with the new tariffs. But Trump wants the Fed to slash rates, and in his post said oil prices are down, groceries, even eggs are down, and the USA is getting rich on tariffs. Let's bring in Dr. Gina and Terrance for more here. You guys, even if President Trump wanted to get rid of Powell immediately, I don't think that he can. There's definitely some steps, there's some processes in place. I don't think that Powell is out until 2026, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. And people forget President Trump is who appointed Jerome Powell. Right. Obviously, that was during his first time in office. But the reality is he and Jerome Powell at this moment, Dr. Gina, don't see eye to eye. And President Trump says he's made it clear to Jerome Powell what he wants to do. I get the sense, based on what President Trump has said, that he's had some discussions with him. He's talked to Jerome Powell about where he would like to see things go. But if there's no change here in short order, then it appears that President Trump may be willing to take whatever steps need to be taken in order to oust Jerome Powell. So we're going to see how all of this ultimately plays out, Dr. Gina.
Yeah, and if you remember, during the vacuous Joe Biden administration, which now we're hearing all the breaking news that Joe was actually running a lot of things, Hunter doing some of the running of things too, there was no president in place, and Jerome Powell, in fact, protected that so-called administration, that criminal, wrongful, deceptive administration throughout Joe Biden's term, and yet won't do the same thing for the guy that appointed him. There's an old saying about biting the hand that feeds you that my grandma used to quote a little bit. Donald Trump put him in place. I believe Donald Trump can take him out, especially considering the mandate that Donald Trump had in his election.
Absolutely. But do you guys see any validity here to Jerome Powell's strategy, right? He just wants to take a breather, take a second, make sure that all these tariffs play out, everything plays out, everything's going to be unchanged just for the time being. Is that a good policy, a good strategy moving forward, just to kind of, like I said, take a breather and feel this out?
See, I'm no economist, so Dr. Gina, I may yield to you. I don't know if this is more of your expertise. I'm no economist, but I will say this. I think it is healthy when there are divergent opinions. Ultimately, Jerome Powell has authority to make some decisions as it relates to interest rates and that kind of thing. And President Trump, of course, has sole authority to push an economic agenda. Unfortunately, at the moment, it appears that those agendas are conflicting to some degree. But I think it is healthy to have a broader conversation about what's healthy and what's best for the economy, but someone's got to yield. In this particular case, I would suggest that Jerome Powell yield, Dr. Gina.
Yeah, no, I completely disagree. I think that Jerome Powell has shown his bias repeatedly throughout the first Trump administration, the Biden administration, and now again, he is biased. This is not about some sort of deliberative, game. This is just not true. He's making excuses. He's lying. He's shown his bias. We know his true colors. He needs to go.
Yeah, politically motivated, definitely, Gina. 100%. All right. Coming up, you guys, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik is getting praise for President Trump as she considers challenging Governor Kathy Hochul in New York. We'll discuss her chances of winning, plus kidnapped on October 7th. In moments, how one woman was reunited with her dog who was captured by Hamas during the terror massacre. That story when American Sunrise returns. Stay with us.
Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
Good morning. At least there's one traffic light in the town. I don't know how many more there are there in Scottsville, but those of you waking up in Scottsville, we appreciate you waking up with us here on American Sunrise. To the rest of you, good morning as well. We appreciate you being here with us across the country. There is no opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange today. It's Good Friday, which means the markets are closed. But here are the final numbers that we've got, or the current numbers right now. As you can see, the Dow is down. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ are both up slightly. Gold and silver seem to be down, and crude oil is back on the rise. It had been down for several days, but now it's up over 3 percentage points. I don't know if you've been paying attention to gas prices, but they're up and down, or have been over the past week or so. Hopefully they will moderate and not go up too much. But of course, enjoy your Good Friday and your Easter weekend. Again, the markets are closed today in observance of Good Friday. All right, let's get you over to Emily Finn. Aren't you happy with me there? Aren't you impressed that I got it right? Not Flynn, Emily Finn.
That
Good
was
morning.
Perfect, Terrance. Perfect, absolutely perfect.
Thank you. Bravo.
I hope Dr. Gina was
Bravo.
listening to that pronunciation. We're going to get it down one of these days. All right, thanks, Terrance. So if you are having some problems getting an extension to file your taxes, you may want to consider a professional tax expert. Tax Network USA spokesperson Cameron Kinsey joins us now to discuss this further. Welcome to the show, Cameron.
Thank you so much for having me, Emily. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. You know, my Google search history is pretty hilarious lately. It's how to do taxes. What is a W-9? Why does the government hate us? You know, why is it important to use a professional tax service like Tax Network USA to avoid making any mistakes?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the IRS, obviously, it's not your friend. They know exactly how to intimidate everyday Americans and take advantage of people. And so at Tax Network USA, we have professionals that negotiate with the IRS every single day directly on your behalf. So you don't have to be talking to them yourself. We take over your case and we build a solid defense for you after reviewing your file and reviewing your paperwork. But, they know the system inside and out. They can fight to make sure working class Americans aren't being steamrolled by government overreach that we saw for the past 4 years under the Biden-Harris administration. Trump just held a press conference yesterday saying, the Biden-Harris administration with the Inflation Reduction Act, they were targeting every single day Americans. They were not targeting the top 1% billionaire class. They actually were targeting people who made $400,000 or even less, auditing more people who were in the lower tax brackets. So we fight for you. We're making sure that we review every single document that you provide for us carefully. And that's why it's very, very important to have professionals in your corner who know the tax code.
Absolutely. So what advice would you give to someone who is struggling with tax debt? Obviously, first thing they should do is contact Tax Network USA, right?
Yes, absolutely. Contact us. Don't panic. We saw a lot of people towards the end of the tax season. They're getting these letters in the mail. They're worrying about a looming audit. They've seen, just the government overreach. We say, do not panic. Get ahead of it, though. Make sure, we do give out free consultations, even if you don't go with our services, just so you're able to see how to approach this situation very carefully. There's still options available to after the deadline to reduce penalties or get an extension. The penalties do rack up after the deadline day by day. So we do say get ahead of it, call as soon as possible, and you have to act fast. But if you have a valid reason for missing deadline, like a hardship or illness or even really confusion, we can often get penalties reduced or wiped out completely. So that's really where having professional help makes a very big difference.
Cameron, what types of help, what types of tax relief services are available to protect individuals from the overreach of IRS tax debt collection?
Yeah, there's various services. There's offers in compromise, there's installment agreements, penalty abatements, innocent spouse relief. There's a wide variety of options depending on your case. But these services really just protect individuals by negotiating with IRS to settle debts for far less than the original amount than one of our clients may owe. So we leverage every single legal tool available during this process just to ensure our clients aren't unfairly targeted or just overwhelmed by the IRS's aggression.
Yeah, so what kind of documentation and information do taxpayers need to provide to defend against aggressive IRS tactics like this when seeking tax relief assistance?
Yeah, it's actually pretty simple. You're going to want pretty standard documentation like your recent tax returns, your income statement, any letters that you've received from the IRS, we would probably want to be made aware of as well. Most importantly, I just say to bring everything, pay stubs, things like that. If you do move forward after the free consultation, the more complete picture that we have for you, the stronger the case that we can build. So the team at Tax Network USA basically takes it from there, though, acting as a liaison between you and the IRS after you do provide us that documentation.
Yep. Yeah. Better to bring more just in case you might need it. You never know. Cameron, It is reported that Elon's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, is intent on rigorously reviewing various government agencies' spending practices, including the IRS. So how do you think that this is going to affect the IRS's behavior toward taxpayers?
Well, just as I told Grant, I don't think enforcement stops just during tax season. I actually think that enforcement is ramping up. We've seen it's a little iffy. I know that we've seen on one side of the coin, we've had hiring freezes. We've had, substantially people, I think it was around 20,000 agents or so had a couple of days signed a letter to make sure that they're going to clean house over there as well. But since it is tax season, and with DOGE advocating for government efficiency, we may see a crackdown just to be able to justify their budget and may be able to see more efficiency. So that's why I just tell people it's better to have professional help who know the tax codes. We have CPAs, we have tax attorneys, and licensed professionals that are in your corner. So instead of having to interpret that yourself, it's easier to give somebody else that burden.
Yeah, definitely. And as we talked about, it could get scary, but don't panic. Tax Network USA is there to help you. Cameron, before we let you go, one last question. How does Tax Network USA help clients deal with unfortunate IRS audits and appeals to avoid those unjust penalties?
Yeah, we provide comprehensive audit representation. We handle all interactions with the IRS, like I've noted, on behalf of our clients. So our experts basically meticulously review the tax filings. We challenge unjust assessments that may have gone on. We negotiate favorable outcomes for our clients through formal appeals when necessary, just by ensuring procedural fairness, holding the IRS accountable during this. We protect taxpayers from unjust penalties.
All right, Cameron Kinsey, always great to see you. Hope you have a very happy Easter. Thanks for joining the show this morning.
Thank you so much, Emily. You too.
Yep. All right, still to come, Chicago city leaders vote to ban convicted January 6th protesters from working for the city. Didn't President pardon these people? The details and the outrage are all ahead on American Sunrise. Also, a dog stolen by Hamas during the October 7th attack made its way home a year and a half later. The details are coming up on American Sunrise.
Hey guys, Bo Davidson here. Easter is coming up this weekend, and I am hosting a terrific Easter special this Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern that I know you won't want to miss. We have Pastor Jonathan Shuttlesworth of Revival Today.
God knows the plan he has for me.
We'll talk about that crazy New Yorker article attempting to debunk Jesus. We've got Lucas Miles, who leads Faith at Turning Point USA.
He loves you right where you are, but he did not die to leave you there.
And we also have the director of The King of Kings, the animated movie that is blowing away box office records and leaving Snow White in the dust.
Telling a great story about forgiveness.
So make sure you check it out this Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Real America's Voice.
American Sunrise. I'm Dr. G. Thanks for joining us this morning. We invite you, of course, to join us in our conversation on Getter and Rumble right now. We are talking about what we're serving for Easter dinner, and the opinions vary out there, I'm telling you. It is time now to take the political pulse of America. The beat today, Chicago's ridiculous ruling to ban convicted January 6 protesters from working for the city. The city council passed the resolution on Wednesday with a 44-3 vote. Most of the convicted J6ers have already been pardoned by President Trump. Ward Alderman Arya Hadden says traitors to this country should not be allowed to work for the city of Chicago. For more, let's bring in the co-host of Cowboy Logic, Donna Fiducia. Donna, the measure applies regardless of pardon or clemency status. And I just can't help but notice that two of you have hats, and they brought me this that I was supposed to put on. It's just, I don't know.
Oh,
something,
no.
something a little, no. So I just said
you
it
look
here.
like Pinocchio.
And,
it's a Pinocchio hat.
I mean, I have the
It's like
finest
we're going to put you in the corner. It's like the dunce cap or something.
Exactly. And I have the finest collection of cowboy hats, I must say. I was not informed of this. I even sent Terrance and David some beautiful cowboy hats.
did.
And here we are, the ones without hats.
Next Friday.
But anyway.
Next Friday. Emily knows how to put the hat on.
I was
now.
going
We
to
gave
say,
her
I
the
was getting
tips
some
between.
tips in the break. This is great.
Yes.
I love it. Love the look.
Good.
She looks like a barrel racer right now, the way she's got it on.
Yes,
That's okay.
it looks good on you. But Donna, in all seriousness, these J6ers have endured enough discrimination. Tell us about this particular situation.
You know, and it wasn't even close, Dr. Gina. 44-3. First of all, Chicago is a sanctuary city, obviously to the hilt. I bet you they'd hire these Tren de Agua and MS-13 gang members before they'd hire a Jan 6er, the majority of which, like I think 75%, are former military and first responders and police. These are people who are tax-paying citizens who were just mad about November 3rd, which was when the real insurrection occurred, in my opinion, of 2019. The thing is, first of all, I don't think any of these people would want to even work in Chicago at this point. They've put themselves so out on a limb. It's almost like the Democrat Party can't get low enough. They're at 21% approval rating. I just don't understand. Why don't they just keep digging themselves in a hole? It's Trump derangement syndrome to the hilt. But the bigger picture, the persecution continues. These guys many of them are still living out of their vehicles. They don't have jobs. They lost their homes. They lost their families. They lost their livelihoods. And this is just a more insult to injury for basically exercising their First Amendment rights. It's reprehensible. It really is.
Don, I want to move to the face-off between Harvard University and the federal government. DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, is now threatening to ban Harvard from hosting international students unless the school gives the Trump administration protest information about foreign students. How is this all ultimately going to play out, and what kind of message does it send in your mind?
In my mind, it sends a message to the Ivy League schools. Why don't you get back to the basics? Instead of brainwashing kids, why don't you teach them reading, writing, and arithmetic? I mean, my father went to University, CCNY, City College in New York. It was called the Poor Man's Harvard. When he passed away, and obviously he went in the 40s, but when he passed away, I looked through some of his stuff. What he did was like a PhD in high school. He went to Stuyvesant High School in New York City. Now you've got 8th graders in Baltimore who can't even read, and now you're getting all these people getting pushed into Harvard at an Ivy League level. I do believe the majority of students at Harvard are foreign born, so they're going to be pushing their own agenda as opposed to the American agenda. And I agree with DHS. This has to stop. I mean, look, we're brainwashing our kids. How do you say October 7th was Israel's fault? You know, and get mad at Israel for October 7th. It's upside down, and that just continues the leftist narrative with their Trump derangement syndrome and everything else that goes against America. These Ivy League schools are actually attacking the American value system, as is the public education system. And at this point, I'd say go to a technical school. You'll make more money.
Yeah, Donna, that's a really good point. You know, if Harvard decides that they want to take this to court, it's pretty likely that it's going to go in President Trump's favor. Listen to this. Just the News is reporting that Trump is nearly undefeated at the Supreme Court. I mean, I got to tip my hat to that. I can't even lift it up here. So learning how to live the hat life here, Donna. But, you know, SCOTUS has handed Trump lots of wins on cases like immigration, DOJ's access to documents, and the firing of federal employees. Will his success continue in future cases? Maybe perhaps like banning birthright citizenship. You know, that case is coming up.
That's huge. And he's right about that. It was for slaves. It wasn't for people coming in from China and India and every other country on earth to have kids here so they would become citizens. But John Solomon just does such great work. The one thing I'd like to ask is, does Judge Boasberg ever take a vacation? The guy works Saturdays. The guy's working right now. And Congress is off for the next 2 weeks. This is at a point where we really need the Judiciary Committee to step up to the plate. I don't know what Jim Jordan's doing at this point, but we need to start seeing some action. At this point, guys, in 2020, there were over 400 J6 arrests at this point in the Biden administration. So what, like 3 or 4 months? I don't see anything happening right now. Hopefully, maybe they're trying to get their paperwork together and everything else. But at this point, we really do need to have some wins on our side because people are starting to get a little PO'd, quite honestly, myself included.
Yeah, definitely. Donna, we also want to ask you a little bit about what is happening in your mind anyway with some of the private lives of these J6ers. I know you followed this repeatedly and throughout when no one was really following it. How are some of them doing? Some of the cases we've heard that are the most heart-wrenching. I know you know the inside scoop. You talk to these families all the time. Tell us.
Yeah, it's rough. There are very few that can just pick up where they left off. In fact, maybe 1 or 2. And even then, it's tough. There's extreme PTSD. And many of these people served overseas in the military where they had PTSD to begin with. And well, they're certainly not getting the A1 treatment that it seems that this MS-13 member might have been getting when he met with Senator Chris Van Hollen. I mean, we're talking, these people were abused. These people were shut into solitary for months on end, and they, again, many are living out of their trucks or their vehicles. They've lost their homes. Yeah. One I jokingly said, I bet you got a big honeydew list now that you're home. He goes, no, I don't have a honeydew list because I lost my home. I mean, and to actually see what's going on in Chicago, many people are being told, yep, I'm not going to hire you if you're a Jan 6er. That's not just in Chicago, unfortunately. And it's...
Well, tell them to move to Florida, Donna. We love them in Florida. Tell them to, we'll welcome them with open arms. And I'm pretty sure Texas might do the same thing, and there are some other states. But Donna, tell us what is coming up on Cowboy Logic this weekend in the Barn Party.
Well, we do have very special, the newest movie on Jan 6 put out by Trennis Evans and Dave Summerall, StopHate.com and Condemned USA. They hit another home run. They really did. They're looking at the courts and the corruption and the judges, as we've been talking about. Plus, we do have a really big surprise that actually made Don and myself kind of well up. So we hope you'll be watching. It's in the Barn Party, 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. on Saturdays, and again at 4 p.m. on Sunday afternoon. And if you have insomnia, 2 a.m. early Monday morning, or for those folks on the West Coast. I'm actually in the chat sometimes at 2 a.m. I never go to sleep. That's just a problem I have. I love to go to bed late. So we hope to see you in the Barn Party right here on Real America's Voice. Love you guys and happy Easter.
Happy
Easter,
That's awesome. That is actually horrible. That's
Never
actually worse than the birthday hat. Okay, bring it back, producers. I'll put the birthday hat on for you. Donna, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you. And here I am in the birthday hat. I don't even know what just happened.
Oh my goodness.
Donna, I literally was going to comment on something she said. Now my mind is completely blank. Donna, thanks for joining us. All right, tariffs have thrown the global economy into chaos. Potential widespread inflation tied to massive supply chain disruptions. weighing heavily on all of us, I know, but there is a silver lining that most people miss. President Trump specifically exempted gold and silver bullion from these sweeping tariffs. While these new policies are triggering significant chaos, the administration preserved your ability to diversify into precious metals. So if you're concerned about your savings, here you go. We have an answer for you. Have a free consultation with Birch Gold Precious Metals Specialist. The first step is to text America to 989898. Receive your free, no obligation info kit on gold. Learn how to hold gold and silver in a tax sheltered account. Birch Gold will help you convert into an existing IRA or 401k into a gold IRA account for no money out of pocket at all. I buy my gold from Birch Gold. Isn't it finally time you did as well? With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of thankful customers, text America to the number 989898. Again, text America to 989898 to claim your free info kit right now. All right, coming up, hats or no hats. The race for New York State's governor's seat could include a congresswoman that will be a Republican, Elise Stefanik. Will she challenge the governor, Kathy Hochul, in the next election? Some argue over how MAGA she is. We can have that conversation in the chat. In fact, we are having that conversation in the chat. Plus, a dog jumps into the arms of an IDF soldier in Gaza. What happens next is nothing short of a miracle. In moments, the story of Billy, a dog snatched by Hamas terrorists during the October 7th attack. Coming up, we are back with more American Sunrise and Colby right after that on this Puppy Friday. More importantly, this Good Friday. Don't go anywhere. We love being with you.
Let's spill some tea.
All right, let's spill some tea, sponsored by Artillery Tea Company. Make sure to go to artilleryteacode.com and use the promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. Artillery Tea is all natural, whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each tea bag can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. Make sure to go to artilleryteacode.com and use the promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. All right, it is time now to spill some tea, and in the cup today, Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who is reportedly considering a bid for New York governor. President Trump praised Stefanik in a social media post this week, saying that she is great. It would certainly be a challenge in the heavily left-leaning state. who hasn't had a Republican governor since 2006. Now, Stefanik says she views incumbent Governor Kathy Hochul as a, quote, weak opponent. According to a poll this week, Hochul only has a 39% approval rating in the state. Let's bring in Dr. Gina and Terrance for more here. You know, could a Republican grab a hold of New York's governor's seat?
It could happen. I mean, it would be difficult. I'm sorry, Dr. Gina. It would be a challenge. Let's just be honest. New York is a heavily Democrat state, and really most of those Democrats are in the city, which has a big part of the voting population. But Elise Stefanik would have as good a shot as any. She's obviously now in President Trump's good graces. She's got his approval, and I would imagine that if she decided to make a run for the governor's office, he would probably back her, so that would be a feather in her cap. And the way the country is going, I think she would have a good opportunity. She's a New York City person, so she could maybe win a couple of boroughs in New York City, and then she can go upstate where she would probably have a bit more success in some of the more rural areas. So it could happen. Everything would have to coalesce and converge together in the right way, but it could absolutely happen, Dr. Gina.
Hasn't happened since 2006. A lot of folks in our audience in particular are a little distrustful of Stefanik. She was quick to turncoat on President Trump at a certain point, and our audience doesn't forget things like that, you know? So I think it's important to note that. However, you look at her, as Siggy in our chat said, you look at her compared to Hochul, and there's really no contest. Hands down, we'd rather have someone who would vote right most of the time, regardless of their MAGA creds. So, you know, I do think it's interesting. President Trump certainly has taken a liking to her. I think it's his affinity for New York. You know, you're always sentimental about where you're from. Certainly, if my state of Missouri were in the same sort of disrepair that Trump's state of New York is in, I'd be looking any direction for any sign of hope that I could find that somebody could perhaps restore it, regardless of their conservative credentials or MAGA credentials. So it'll be interesting to watch. That's certainly true. Some in our audience also saying, hey, I thought she didn't take ambassador because she was so needed in Congress. If she was so needed in Congress, why is she looking at governor? Questions to be answered, Terrance.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me. And again, I have no inside baseball here, but it wouldn't surprise me if what has happened has maybe been strategic, that the Trump administration or advisors within the administration saw potential benefits elsewhere and decided to retool and put her in a position, if you will, to be successful. It wouldn't surprise me. Again, I don't know that that's happening behind the scenes, but if it comes out, the closer we get to that election, and in fact, if Elise Stefanik decides to run for governor, if it comes out then, I wouldn't at all be surprised. It wouldn't knock me over.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct on that, Terrance. Well, great discussion, you guys. Still to come on American Sunrise, the incredible journey of this pooch who was abducted during Hamas's October 7th attack. The miraculous story of survival and the emotional reunion is coming up next.
our chat wants coffee mugs with our photos on them, but Terrance says that he has seriously contemplated going for second helpings of the wafer and the grape juice at church. Terrance, please don't do that. We don't want to read about you, and we don't want you to be the headlines on our show on Monday after Easter services.
I admit I've never done it, but I've contemplated that. I'm a huge fan. Not only for the meaning of that part of church, but I like the grape juice and I like the wafers. I do.
Terrance,
I admit it.
You wouldn't get more Jesus by going back for seconds at communion. Just a little tip. All right, welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. G. Thanks so much for joining us today, and thanks for all of your activity in the chat. It's good to see some people I haven't even seen in there for a while. We have a blast in there. You guys really got to get in the chat with us. All right, it is time for Sunny Side Up, and in the pan today, Puppy Friday Miracle. This 3.5-year-old Cavalier King Charles Spaniel named Billy was reunited with his Israeli family. Now, after the pup and some of its family were abducted during Hamas's October 7th, 2023 attack, owner Rachel Danzig has been without this little precious puppy for more than 18 months. During the attack, she says she hid in a safe room, but when she fled, there was no time to go and find her Billy. Now, her ex-husband and brother were both kidnapped from the kibbutz and later died while in Hamas's constraint. Last week, an Israeli reservist found Billy, the puppy, while his unit was in Rafah. This is almost unbelievable. The IDF soldier cared for Billy for 4 days and even received permission to take Billy back with him to Israel. A scan of the microchip at a veterinarian's office found that Billy belonged to Danzig, and then this heartwarming reunion happened. Take a look.
Wow.
I so wanted them to let Billy off lead so that we could watch her naturally run to her family. But the family was convinced that Billy had died, so they had already purchased another dog or found another dog. I don't know how they got it. From the same breed, King Cavalier Spaniel, for the family. And now the family says the two dogs live together happily ever after, best friends like Mike Colby and Harlow. A true miracle from heaven, and such a sweet story. And it's apparent that Colby either really likes that story too, or I have spilled something on my face that he's licking off. I don't know.
You know what? I suspect that some of the emotion we just saw there is because the dog returning is just a little